Welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel, Reading with the Crew.
Thank you so much there, Jack61, and a warm welcome to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Today, unfortunately, we start the podcast on a somewhat sober note. Some of you may know or may have been aware, some of you may not have been aware of the sudden passing of Millbilly. Now, Millbilly passed away suddenly. He was found deceased in his home on Sunday, February the 25th. He passed away at a very young age of 42.
41, Doc.
41? Okay,
Yep,
41.
that's right.
My apologies, but still a very young age. And we do not know basically the cause of death, but he was found deceased at home, and his interment was on March the 6th. And it's amazing. You think that you know people, but you really don't. Millbilly, I found out his actual name was Jason. I knew Millbilly as a YouTuber. I've met Millbilly, did many podcasts with Millbilly, and some members here on the panel have also interacted with Millbilly over the years. And yeah, it was a shock to all of us, a shock to the community, and of course, a shock to his family to lose your life at such a young age. But several things about Millbilly. The gentleman was incredibly passionate. He was an advocate for the truth. He worked very, very, very hard. He gave a lot of people a lot of opportunities and chances. And like I said, some panel members here and myself, we were fortunate enough to do several podcasts with Millbilly, have some great discussions on the case. The one thing that really struck for me about Millbilly, and Jason, of course, is his real name, was that he absolutely believed in the innocence of both Stephen and Brendan. He was a very, very strong advocate for the truth, a very, very hard worker. Millbilly had a very active YouTube channel, which he posted regularly. He had many chat sessions with people. He gave a lot of people the platform to discuss the case and other matters. Like I said, I really only knew Millbilly on more of a professional level. We really interacted more about discussing the case and things like that. But, it's a real shock when you actually discover his real name, Jason, and the fact that he was so young when he passed away. We do not know the cause of death, but what is very, very interesting is that if you have a look at one of the very last comments that he made on his YouTube channel, and I'll read it out. This was only posted by Millbilly a few weeks ago, in which he said, I quote, "Normally, I would read the brief for you all, but currently not too good health-wise, but hopefully I get better, but here it is." And this is really representative of Millbilly, that despite not being well, he always came to the fore, to the front, and he presented documents involved in the Brendan Dassie and Stephen Avery cases. He was a real trooper and a sad loss to the community, and all of us here on the Foul Play team, and I'm sure people in chat who are both shocked and dismayed, if you haven't heard already. All of us here want to wish his family, his friends, and the wider community our sincere condolences. It's a terrible time, especially when a child loses their father. And also, it's a terrible loss for the truther community, because Millbilly, now he wasn't everyone's favorite cup of tea. He can be quite polarizing, but he called a spade a spade. And I always remember Millbilly was always sharp, to the point, and his words still echo in my mind. Cuss Road, Bushman, 1 o'clock. He was very, very passionate about the events of Cuss Road, and he's a tireless worker. Again, guys, we send our deepest condolences to his family and friends. Thank you very much. This is the very least that we can do. Does anyone here wish to add a few comments? Jack 61.
Yeah, it's it hits pretty close to home for me. I mean, my oldest son is just turned 37. 37. That's 4 years younger than Millbilly, and it was a huge loss. Huge. And you think about the mortality of us all. I got 20 plus years on him, and I know you do too, Doc.
Yes.
I think about, my God, man, at 40 years old and he's gone, 41. Big loss. I'm sure crushing loss for his daughter. I know he's got I think 19, 20-year-old daughter, and I can't even imagine being 20 years old and losing my father, because he lived much longer. I mean, he's been gone for many years, but I'm quite a bit older. So, but I have been asked, DM'd by many people on the side, what happened to Millbilly. All I can tell you is what Doc read. I think there may have been one more comment on Twitter or two that he wasn't feeling well, and his health, I can't remember the exact wording, but his health situation was serious.
Yes.
And, we don't know the particulars about what he was doing about it. Don't have any idea, guys. So I wish we could, maybe at some point in the future we can answer those questions. We just can't right now. We just don't know what happened. So anyway, big loss to the community. Our condolences to the friends, and especially to his daughter and family. Thank you.
Correct. Thank you so much there, Jack 61. And at this time, we reflect all the people in our lives and also in the Truther community that have recently passed away. It's been a horrendous few years. Those are strong voices, and it's sad when you no longer hear them. But I promise the Foul Play team and other many YouTubers will continue the very good work and the very good fight. And again, guys, please, to the Millbilly family, to Jason's family, we extend our condolences. Does anyone else have any additional comments? All right, Jack 61, we can actually start the podcast if you wish. Beautiful. So, guys, as you know, we'll continue our series. Neverly and I put together a new Reading with the Crew series, and we're presenting new information from John Ferak's book. And this is actually episode number 8, entitled New Witnesses Emerge. And as you can tell from our previous podcasts, we have deep dived into this particular chapter. This particular chapter that we're going to be continuing is extremely controversial, confronting, but we must cover it. Some of the questions that we'll be covering in this particular podcast, for example, was it just Bobby Dassie searching for and downloading hardcore pornography on the so-called Dassie home computer that was found in his bedroom? Now, was this a motive to murder Teresa Halbach and frame Stephen Avery? So these are the big questions that we'll be covering in today's podcast. All of us here from the Foul Play team want to thank all of our subscribers, our supporters, and our mods. Thank you so much. Jack 61, if we can have a look at the next slide. Just to let everybody know, we have our disclaimer for our material, And on the right-hand side, what the foul play team represents, the only thing that we ask is please be civil and respectful in your comments. Jack 61, if we can have the next slide, please. Guys, you all know why we're here, right? There's no need to repeat it. And please, today in our podcast, viewer discretion is strongly advised, mainly because of the material that we're covering. And guys, joining me on the panel today is Jack 61, Just Rhonda, Susan, I don't recall, and Neverly. Thank you so much, guys. If we can have the very first slide, Jack 61. Okay, so as you know, Kathleen Zellner believes that Bobby Dassie is a Denny suspect. But why? Why does Kathleen Zellner believe that Bobby Dassie is a potential Denny suspect? And as we've discussed, and most people are aware, there are 3 prongs that you must satisfy to present an individual as a potential third-party Denny. You have to show motive, opportunity, and a direct connection to the crime. Kathleen Zellner believes that Bobby Dassie suffices all of these 3 Denny prongs. And as you know, Kathleen Zellner has put in her filing. She had to do a brand new filing, and now we're waiting for a response. It's quite clear from what we've heard so far. The state does not agree that Bobby Dassie is a viable third-party Denny, but we're going to look into the reasons why. So let's start off with the motive prong. Why does Kathleen Zellner believe that Bobby Dassie is such a potential third-party Denny suspect? Let's look at motive. So as Jack 61, if we could look at the very first slide, it all boils down to the so-called Dassie computer. Now, you know, we've gone through this many, many times, and we're not going to go into detail again. We've done it before. But this image of the so-called Dassie computer, this was taken by detectives on November the 6th, 2005, when they did a walkthrough. This computer was present in Bobby Dassie's bedroom. So the question here is, what about the material that was found on the hard drive on this computer? As you know, this computer was seized by law enforcement on April the 21st, 2006. They took the hard drive and they analyzed the contents of the hard drive. But an important point, before this hard drive was seized, Barb Tadich had the computer reformatted, right? Just prior to it being seized. When the computer hard disk was analyzed, the gentleman who did the analysis for the state was Mike Veerley. So essentially, with his analysis, he was asked to look at specific search terms that were present on that hard drive. Furthermore, he did an analysis of all the pornographic material that was searched for and downloaded. And this analysis became known as the Veerley CD. And again, guys, it's very, very controversial, as we've covered before, right? So here's the question, and that is this material that was found on this computer, the so-called Dassie computer, was it really a motive for Bobby Dassie to murder Teresa Halbach and then frame his uncle? Guys, do we have any comments or questions? Jack 61.
Well, you know, just being honest, and I have to look at this as unbiased as I can. Considering age and a lot of other factors, I think that in a murder investigation, it's all relevant to what the subject matter you're discussing for me. But in a murder investigation of this magnitude, the questions have to be asked. I just don't think you can just shove it aside and be done with it and stick it in a box. With that said, I can't travel all the way down the road that Zellner's going. I can't. Not yet. At the same time, he was there. At the same time, she was. And I can't let that go. Again, I'm not saying Bobby did a damn thing. As we sit here right now, he's innocent.
None of us do. Correct. Everyone has
It's
a presumption of innocence. Correct.
it's just
100%
it's right. It's just questions that I think should have been asked originally and weren't. It's not that he was certainly wasn't the only one that had access to that computer. We know that.
correct.
But
Correct.
I think
Which
the questions had to be asked, Doc.
correct. Correct. Thank you so much, Jesse. Susan, your comments.
Yeah, I'll just say that it could be possible that he was a little
Unhinged.
fixed. Yeah, it's possible he was unhinged and he was just focused on that sort of thing and became kind of obsessed with Teresa. It's possible.
Yes. Yeah. 100% correct. Yep, 100% correct. Now, let me tell you right now, Kathleen Zellner, as you could well imagine, has been very, very heavily criticized for even suggesting that Bobby Dassie is the third-part Denny suspect. However, if you dig deep into the literature, if you look at the testimonies, if you look at the documents, it's actually Ken Kratz that placed Bobby Dassie and the investigators in a very, very uncompromising position. And through the actions or inactions of Fassbender and Kratz, it really led to Kathleen Zellner targeting Bobby Dassie. Guys, would you agree? The way the Valey CD was handled. Guys, would you agree or disagree?
Absolutely.
Yep.
Say that question. Say that again, Doc. What's the question?
The fact that Kathleen Zellner has gone after Bobby Dassie, who, remember, is the Star's state witness, the witness, the star witness for the state. It's because of the way the Valey CD was handled.
Oh, no doubt.
Prior
Absolutely.
to the trial, during the trial, which led, unfortunately, Kathleen Zellner going down this pathway, right? And you'll see exactly what they did, what the state prosecutor and also Tom Fassbender did. It really placed poor Bobby Dassie in a terrible compromising position.
Well, it reeks of malfeasance. That's probably a bad word, but it took her 11, 12 years to get it.
Yep.
No, 2000. Let's just say May 2006 until.
Yep.
I think it was May of 2018. I think that's right.
Yep.
When she finally got the CD from Fallon or whoever the hell sent it to her.
Correct. Tom Fallon. Correct. So Jack 61, if we can have a look at the next slide.
If I could just say something, Dr. Silkman.
Neverly, yes.
We've all listened to criminal trials for years now, right?
Yes.
One Crime Network, Courtroom, whatever it's called, all the YouTube channels. I know I've done my part. And it is quite often that you see who the state's star witness is, somebody who has flipped, somebody who has the most to lose. They turn sides and they get some kind of a privilege. You know what I mean?
Some form of compensation or dispensation.
Compensation, exactly. But in this case, again, I'm not saying Bobby Dassie is guilty or innocent or anything. I'm just commenting on what I know and what's factual, which is during his time on the stand, his statements were so shady and uncomfortable to listen to because there wasn't kind of a natural flow to it. It was very cringy to see Bobby Dassie point to his uncle.
Yes.
Which, that's done for, first of all, it's not unusual to be asked while you're on the stand, do you see the defendant, Do you know the defendant, who it is? Can you point to him?
Yep.
But that's his freaking uncle. They're tight family. Number one. Number
Correct.
two, the statement that he said that he saw Teresa walking towards Stephen's trailer, when we actually found a document where he originally said that it was Stephen who was
Flipped the other way.
he
Correct.
flipped it the other way.
Yep.
Another point is his alibi. The alibi was so shady. Everybody can
Improbable.
agree on that one.
Yep.
Yeah, like very implausible, very hard to believe. So there's all these little components that when you take
Yes.
it as a totality, it just looks very, very bad. And for him to be the star witness, the guy, the family member, a nephew, to flip on his uncle,
And ultimately his brother.
and ultimately
His own brother. Correct.
So who knows what was happening behind the, closed doors? Who was, we read all the documents. We saw how Dithering was, now I say Dithering, having that monologue with to Bobby Dassie, how he was saying, well, if you think that
Correct.
somebody's going to plant, blah, blah, and your uncle wants to
Correct.
jam you up and so forth, it was, So to me, it's not unusual. It's not like out of the ordinary that he would be picked on as a state star witness.
Yes. So in other words, no one should really be surprised that Kathleen Zona is going straight for the state star witness, because there's no question the way the trial was engineered was to imply that Teresa Halbach was inside Stephen's trailer, right? The fact that Stephen was holding Teresa Halbach against her will. That's the implication that the state was trying to provide and convince the judge and the jury that that's what actually took place. Kathleen Zona is actually following the lead of what the courts have asked. If you're going to present a third party Denny, you need to satisfy all the prongs, right? So that's why Kathleen Zona has deliberately targeted Bobby Dassie for good or bad. Check 61.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just wanted to add a little bit to Neverly's comments, which were all right there on the periphery, as it were. We can't ignore that. But I had a comment up from Cherie, I don't recall, about teenage boys looking at soft porn or whatever, nudes and that kind of Playboys and penthouses and all that. And I dare say that the bulk of us that are of that age just did. That's just a fact. But then you have this other element. And I'm not just saying that Bobby's the one that did it, but there was death porn on that computer, death porn images.
Correct.
And it can't be ignored. It just can't.
Correct. 100% correct. So as you can see here, guys, on the slide of the Foul Play team, we've done an extensive series of podcasts looking at the actual contents on what was on the Dassie computer, the so-called Dassie computer, the hard drive. And we've deep dive into the analysis. Now, we looked at 4 specific chapters from the Wrecking Crew that we did here as podcasts. We looked at Computer Blues, Computer Disc, Bobby's Obsessions, and also Fantasy Life. So we deep dived, and we're not going to go on and on again about what the contents were. I'm sure most people in chat and on the panel are fully aware of the material that was on the computer. So guys, I implore you, go check out those podcasts. If you want extra details about the analysis on the computer, please check out these chapters. Okay, Jack 61, if we can have a look at the next slide. Now, this is something very important, and a lot of people do not know this. It's quite obvious that the Dassie family were not aware of this at the time. Now, remember, I'm here. This is 2005, right? So I'll read it out. In fact, Neverly, would you like to read it out? Do you see the slide? I'll just see if Neverly can see the slide.
Yes, sorry. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
can you see the slide? So
Yes.
have a read of this. Is pertinent to what happened in 2005. Let's go for it.
Internet service providers, ISPs, can see and record everything you do online. This includes your browsing history, the videos you watch, and the websites you visit, even if you use incognito mode or delete your history from your device. Windows PCs keep a record of your internet browsing history. Formatting an HDD does not permanently erase data.
Right. So this is the important thing. Even though that you believe you're privately browsing, no, not at all. Your ISP, your internet service provider, still has a record of everything you view, everything you search, everything you download. They've got a record. And I know that most governments now around the world demand that an ISP keep a record of your viewing and browsing history for, I think, a period of 2 years. So if there's a court case, if you're involved in some type of shonky business, potentially your browsing records can be subpoenaed, right? Even if you format your hard drive, you believe that you're completely removing everything on your hard drive. Jack61, you want to comment about what if you try and format your hard drive?
Well, as the old saying goes, the internet's forever. You think about, damn it, what's it called? The Wayback Machine, the archiving, and this is done on a damn near minute by minute basis at this point in time. I mean, it's like the .org site, StephenAveryCase.org, that we originally had. Now that site is gone, but it still exists on the .org site. Now, not every single file is there, but
Yes.
most of it is. Most of it is still archived. And there's times that I've had to actually, I mean, we've got everything in our library, but there are times that I can't find it in our library. I've actually had to go to the .org site because I knew it so well where
Yep.
stuff was to be able to grab it. So just think about it. What Doc said, it doesn't matter if you format your computer. It's recorded somewhere else off of your computer.
Correct. So quite clearly, these factors applied with the Dassie computer. Even though Bob attempted to get the computer formatted, the material was still there, right? So basically what happens if you do a low-level formatting, you basically overwrite the material. You do not completely blank your hard drive. You need hardcore wiping, military-grade wiping, to completely restore your hard drive back to how it originally was. You got to remove all the file structures, the whole lot. So when Veely and Hunt were able to analyze the hard drive, no worries. They use a lot of software and they're able to recover all the search terms, all the downloaded material, and of course, all the images, right? So the only way you can properly cover your tracks is by using a VPN. Now, I'm sure back in 2005, I don't think the boys or whoever was using the computer were using a VPN. Guys, would you agree? None of them.
I doubt it. VPNs were a relatively newer kind of thing, and I seriously doubt it.
Yep. Awesome. All right. So, guys, do we have any comments? All right. Has everyone?
I think we're good, Doug.
Have we scared half of that our audience and everyone's running to wipe their hard drives? Or what?
I don't think so.
All right. So, guys, what I wanted to do is to have a look at some statistics. These statistics are not only alarming, I think once you see them, you'll realize that the state were also looking at these statistics as well. And they use them effectively against Kathleen Zellner. So what I wanted to do was to have a look at internet pornography statistics in the US. Basically asking the question, all right, well, how many people are actually viewing online pornography, right? This is in America. Now, these statistics are relatively recent statistics. So you have to extrapolate back to 2005. But there's no doubt that these numbers are actually quite shocking and also revealing. So, because all the ISPs keep the data, you can do statistics. And guys, it's been worked out that every second, there are over 28,000 people watching pornography on the internet. Every second.
That number, just thinking in my mind, that number seems low, but okay, I'll go with that.
I think this is the people without VPNs, et cetera, et cetera. This is the ones where they can get access to the data, right?
Right.
That's every second, the flow through of traffic. Every day, it's been worked out that there are 68 million search queries which are related to pornography, right? Out of all the searches done on the internet, a quarter have got to do with pornography. That's a huge amount of bandwidth and resources. But what I found very, very deeply disturbing was this one. Every day, there were 116,000 queries related to child pornography every day. Guys, is anyone shocked by that number?
No.
You know, Doc, disappointingly, I'm not shocked, and I'm serious. I mean, we took our little break, and I did a little like homework for myself, just diving into other. I'm not going to bring up a lot of it. I promise I'll be quick. But looking into other cases and other court proceedings and stuff and so forth, and a lot of it were actually court proceedings. These 2-3 hour montage of different court cases that appear like on A&E. And anyway, it was shocking, the number of child pornography, and just it was crazy. So I'm not shocked.
Yep. But yeah, so the searching for child pornography on the internet is extremely prevalent, right? That's a very, very important point. So the statistics also show that around about 40 million American people regularly visit porn sites, right? And 35% of all internet downloads, they're related to pornography. That's a massive amount of bandwidth which is dedicated to pornography. So a lot of people in the US, and I'm sure in other countries, Australia and elsewhere around the world, these statistics are probably quite similar. But here's another very interesting statistic, right? Do you remember back in the day of the early internet, where you would go to a music site, a site involving computer games, and all of a sudden you're bombarded with pop-ups of pornography?
Yep.
Right? And it was like, wait a minute, I'm looking up how to get a cheat code for this game. Why am I getting all these pop-ups? Now, if you're by yourself and you're a mature adult and it doesn't affect you, it's fine. But when you're with your wife or your partner or your kids and you're in a public space or a library or in your office, it potentially can be very, very embarrassing. So the statistics show that, I'll quote, 34% of internet users have experienced an unwanted exposure to pornographic content through ads, pop-up ads, and misdirected links and emails. It's much better now, but back in the early days of the internet, it was wild.
I just wanted to say, Doc, I didn't go to Napster or anything. I never did that.
We believe you, Jack 61.
If anyone remembers Napster, I know that probably there's some people in here that don't know, like, what's that? Napster used to be the music website.
Yeah.
It was a massive, and they, that's when they came in and said, no, you can't download copyrighted music for free. You can't do that. That's a big no-no.
Yep, correct. So the important point is this: a lot of people watch pornography, right, in the United States and throughout the world. But I went deeper. I wanted to ask the question: all right, what about boys around the age that the Dassie boys were? So there's statistics done on that. So if we can have a look at the next slide, right? So I wanted to find out what percentage of teens watch pornography. So we'll just wait for that slide to come up. And I'll tell you what, it's the next one. Yeah, that's it. I'll read out a couple of these. These points are actually very, very important because these statistics were used by the state in a very, very clever fashion. So here are the statistics. 9 out of 10 boys and 6 out of 10 girls are exposed to pornography online before the age of 18. Is anyone shocked by that?
I'm not. I'm not shocked at all.
Does anyone want to comment? Okay. All right. Next one. The first exposure to pornography amongst boys is 12 years old on average. Very, very young age. Now, how can a 12-year-old understand adult material, right? It's very, very interesting. At an average age of 12, what is even more alarming, both boys and girls have been exposed online to group sex, bestiality, child pornography, and also sexual bondage. Guys, do those terms remind you of anything? What are all those terms that we've just gone through? What do they remind you of? What we're currently doing? What does it remind you of?
The searches that were done on the Dassie computer.
Yep,
Yeah.
you got it. In a nutshell, you got it. And here, black and white, are the statistics, right? Both boys and girls who are teenagers have been exposed to group sex, bestiality, child pornography, sexual bondage, right? And that's precisely some of the search terms and images that were downloaded and found on the so-called Dassie computer, right? And here's another important factor, and that is 71% of teens have done something to hide their online activity from their parents, right? And as you know, Barb got her computer formatted because she said that, my understanding is that it was running slow, it had viruses, etc., and wanted to reformat it. Now, it's true. Back in the day, if you visited certain sites, the chance of you getting a Trojan virus or a virus that could download or upload material on your computer and material on your computer is actually quite high. Your computer could easily become infested and it can take you to porn sites everywhere. So you have to be extremely careful. So guys, if we have a look at all these statistics, teenagers in the US as young as 12, probably if not younger, have been exposed to all forms of pornography. And if you look at the statistics, a lot of the boys and the girls say, no, I don't see anything wrong with it at all. So my question is this, and this is relevant to what we're discussing in this chapter. The question is this to the panel and in chat. Is anyone actually surprised that there was pornographic material on the Dassie computer?
Not at all. I'm not shocked at all.
No.
No, 4
I mean-
teenage boys. Come on.
Thank you. And there
With
are other
little supervision. Yeah.
other adult males that were in the house. Can't
Yep.
discount Scott being there.
Yep.
The ex-husband. My mind just went blank. Tom Yonder.
Yep. So these statistics,
And their friends. I'm talking about the boys.
Correct.
The friends, right?
Correct.
Travis, and whoever else came over. Yeah.
Correct. So the mere fact that there was pornographic material on the computer, honestly, when you look at those statistics, it's not so much of a big deal. But what was a big deal was the nature of the material found on the Dassie computer. Neville, do you have a comment?
Well, I was gonna say, I was reading comments over here, and our
Yes.
friend, I don't recall, said, I remember that Uyghur thought such searches would be relevant if found on Stephen's computer.
Yes.
And that's another thing that we haven't mentioned so far. Just imagine if the shoe was on the opposite foot, if they found 50% of that on Stephen's computer,
All they
he would
needed
have
was
been
one
lynched.
image.
Yeah,
One image.
yeah. And even Mr. Honest Andy Colburn said that they were underwhelmed with his porn collection. So Stephen had nothing to do with that.
Correct.
Somehow this was all forgotten. This was hidden, for 12 years or whatever. And they fought tooth and nail to provide that information to Stephen's counsel.
Correct. 100% correct. So the state, they're not silly. They're going to try and debunk Kathleen Zona. They're going to ensure that Bobby Dassie doesn't satisfy all the prongs, the so-called Denny prongs. And one of them is to attack the motive aspect. So as I said to you before, none of us should really be surprised that a lot of teenagers, both males and females, are downloading pornographic material, right? People are interested in sex universally, but it's the nature of the content that was deeply disturbing on the Dassie computer. Can we have a look at the next slide, please? Right. So as you know, Fassbender wrote a report. Susan, do you see that slide?
Yes, Doc.
Would you like to read it out? So this is a report done by Fassbender.
In reviewing the images contained on the disk marked Final Report, Special Agent Fassbender made the following observations. Photographs of both Teresa Halbach and Stephen Avery with an apparent date of April 18, 2006. There were numerous images of nudity, both male and female, to include pornography. The pornography included both heterosexual, homosexual, and bestiality. There were images depicting bondage as well as possible torture and pain. There were also text images with the name Emily. There were images depicting potential young females to include an infant defecating. There were images of injuries to humans to include a decapitated head, a badly injured and bloodied body, a bloody head injury, and a mutilated body. The disc received from Detective Ely, as well as the hard copy pages of instant message conversations, were maintained in Special Agent Fassbender's possession.
Thank you.
Jesus.
Now, is there anything that they summarize there that you find potentially offensive or disturbing, Jack 61?
Well, right off the bat, the photographs of Teresa and Stephen with an apparent date of April 18, 2006. This is 3 days before the computer was seized, which is interesting.
Yep.
There are many things that are listed that are a real concern to me, as a parent, as a person, just because of the nature of what it is. And it's really as disturbing, if not more so, that Fassbender didn't do shit about it. Nothing. Didn't do nothing. I think that's, it's just really disturbing to me. And why? Yep. What was his motive in not making another case, a deeper inquiry here? Why?
Yep. It was done deliberately, as we know. So, guys, if you want further information about this, check out our website. And I've even listed the DCI report there, right? So, to me, as a parent, some of this material is highly disturbing, okay? Anything involving torture, pain, underage pornographic images, child pornography. That's a no-go zone. But having said all of that, who has ever gone to rotten.com?
Well,
Anybody check it out? And even in chat, has anyone ever gone to that site?
oh, personally, no. I remember seeing it, but I never went to that
Yep.
particular site. No.
No,
Yep.
never heard of it actually. No.
Yep. Because
I've heard of it, but never went there.
Yep. And that was one of the search sites that somebody on the Dassie household went to. So essentially, because my daughter told me, my daughter is 35. She told me back in the day that all the kids in her high school class were going on rotten.com to find the most grossest image that they could to outgross each other. So we're talking about traffic accidents. We're talking about shootings, suicides. They were all doing it. And they were clearly going to these sites in the Dassie household. One of the websites that they went to was rotten.com, right? So you may argue, well, it's just teenage curiosity. However, you can't justify a lot of the other material that was found, especially involved young females, torture, pain, decapitations. To me, that's extreme.
I think that
61.
I think we really have to divide. I mean, me just thinking about what you just said about kids they're trying to outdo each other. That's a competition. But now when you dive up into the sexual aspect of it, deviant sexual and death porn, now you're entering to another zone. For me, I'm not saying everybody should feel the way I do.
Yep.
I'm just saying the way I see it, reasonably see this.
Yep. Thank you. Susan.
Yeah, I think the state hid the VLCD so that the defense did not have Denny and Bobby.
Yes.
Bobby, after all, Bobby was there. Bobby saw her. He had the opportunity. And whether or not Bobby did these searches, it's definitely possible that Bobby did some of the searches.
Correct.
Which
and
could give
muddy
him
the waters for them.
which could give him motive.
To keep it clean. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're not. Kathleen is not trying to convict Bobby. She's not trying to prove he did it. She's trying to prove that it's possible somebody else did it, other than Stephen. Somebody that had the means, motive, and opportunity. And
That's right.
I think Bobby makes a great Denny. I think if the defense had the VLCD, they could have put him up as a Denny and given the jury an opportunity to see it was possibly somebody else.
Correct.
Reasonable doubt.
Yep. Correct. Thank you, Susan. Everly, do you have any comments?
Well, while we're on the subject, Danny Brewer fan said Fassbender kept it to himself because he didn't point to Stephen and he dirtied up their star witness. And
Yes.
Yeah, I totally agree with that myself.
Yep, 100% correct. And don't worry, we're going to systematically go through that, because this now explains the way Judge Angie attacked Kathleen Zellner in her filing. Once you have all this information, you now understand the perspective of the state and how they attacked Kathleen. Because if they can present, if the defense back in 2007 could present as a viable Denny, Bobby Dassie, there would have been trouble. There would have been reasons for doubt. Absolutely no question. Because then all arguments could have been presented. Well, why was Bobby looking at Teresa Ford for like 5 minutes? Was he stalking her? Oh, look at all this material found on his computer. Bobby, didn't you say that you were asleep? What are you doing on the computer? So it was those type of arguments, and I agree with Susan. potentially it could have pointed to somebody else. Guys, would you agree?
Yeah, definitely, and definitely be used as rebuttal material, right?
Correct. But the state attorneys were very, very clever in bending the ear of Judge Willis
Oh
to
yeah,
get certain stipulations in play that basically hobbled the defense. It
that's
was a
right.
master stroke. Uh,
Yeah,
TJ
we got a
Anderson.
question. I think we can go ahead and answer this if you want, Doc. TJ asked, is there a video listing the searches with the timestamps to prove anyone downloaded searched it?
I think from memory, I have to check the podcast that we did. I think Zellner and Orvili generated 4,500 pages of material from the Dassie computer, and so it shows a pathway and also a timestamp of all the websites, the search terms, the images, everything. Yeah,
Yeah,
Jaxis.
yeah, and we have to understand that, guys, that a lot of this stuff is sealed. Kathleen
Yes,
Zellner asked
there
for
is
it to be
something
sealed.
that's sealed. There is something that's sealed. Correct. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of this material is sealed. I remember reading that the other day. I don't think anyone has seen it, but I remember on MAM 2, Kathleen Zellner presented this massive folder of the printout of material. It's huge, right? So they know, remember, your computer keeps a record of all the times that you're on the computer, where you go, and everything is time stamped because the computer's got an internal clock. They know all your activity. So this was a big problem, right? Once Kathleen Zellner came onto the scene, we have case 02, right? And Deidring went to talk to Bobby Dassie, right? So Jack 61, if we can have a look at the next slide, please. Neverly, do you see that slide?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Would you like to read this out? This is what Deidring wrote about Bobby Dassie. Now, remember, these are just excerpts from his report. This is case 02. You can check it up in our library. Let's go for it.
Type of activity, interview of Bobby Dassie. Date of activity, 11/17/2017. Reporting officer, Special Investigator John Diedering. Bobby was asked if he used the computer and the internet while he was living in his mother's residence. Bobby stated he did not recall, but stated, if I did, it wasn't often. Initially, Bobby indicated he did not recall if they had the internet at his mother's residence. Bobby stated the tower computer was the only computer in the residence, I think, quote unquote. Bobby stated everyone was on the computer, but he stated Blaine and Brandon were the main users, as they use it for games. Bobby stated he thought the computer was on a desk in the living room at the time.
Okay.
This is just, okay.
Yep.
Bobby was asked if he ever downloaded or viewed pornography on his mother's computer. Bobby stated he never downloaded any pornography. Bobby stated he may have watched porn at some point on it, but indicated, quote, I don't know, end quote. Bobby stated there were 5 guys with access to the computer and he doesn't know if they would have downloaded or viewed pornography. I asked Bobby who the 5th person was. Bobby identified his brothers, Blaine, Brandon, Brian, and himself, and Tom Yanda, as being the individuals with access to the computer. Bobby stated he did not use the computer much as he was working 3rd shift at the time. Bobby was asked where his mother's computer was located in his mother's residence in October 2005. Bobby stated he thought it was in the living room. Bobby was asked if it was ever in his bedroom, and he stated it was not. Bobby stated he had a 10 by 12 bedroom and there was not much room in the bedroom after putting in dressers and beds. Beds! Bobby stated he thought he shared the bedroom with his brother Brian. Bobby stated Brian eventually moved to the downstairs portion of the residence, and this may have taken place before 10/31st of 2005.
All right. So, guys,
Interesting.
what's your impression about Bobby and the use of the computer in his bedroom?
To be
That's
nice,
beautiful.
he's distancing himself.
He's
Big
lying.
time.
He's
He lied
lying
about
through
it.
his teeth. Yeah, but he's an I don't know. I don't recall. I don't know. It wasn't me. It was Blaine
The
and Brendan.
computer was never in his bedroom.
Yeah.
Come on,
And
Oh,
clearly it was.
clearly.
Yep.
and he couldn't fit a computer in his bedroom, really.
Yep.
And he didn't watch porn or was on the computer because he was working a third shift.
Yep. So
Yeah.
would you get the impression from reading that Bobby was not very much a user of the computer, and
That's what he says.
the main users were Blaine and Brendan? Is that the impression you get?
That's what he says.
Yep.
Well, if
Basically.
he didn't know better.
And if he viewed pornography, just the occasional, nothing to see here, despite the fact that I think they was isolated over 14,000 images. I have to double check that. But the impression I get is that Bobby, he doesn't want to know about the computer, and he actually thought the computer was in the main room, not in his bedroom. He didn't see much pornography. He's got no idea, and the main users were Blaine and Brendan for homework. Did I sum that up okay?
Basically,
Yep.
yeah.
All right. Okay. So if Bobby had in actual fact been a heavy user of the computer and downloaded a lot of questionable material, is he behaving like a typical teenager trying to hide their internet activity, as the statistics showed?
Of course.
Yep. Correct. But did Deidre deep dive any further? Bobby, you're lying, or did he just accept it?
Well, on the surface, he accepted it. It doesn't appear that he did more deep diving. And if he knew, he just didn't say anything. It's like, okay.
Yep. Okay. Guys, do we have any additional comments? Neverly.
Oh no, just it's amazing how he whitewashed everything.
Yep. All right. That didn't stop there. If we look at the next page, Kathleen Zellner then asked Blaine Dassie, well, what can you tell me about the computer? I don't recall. Can you see the slide? I'll see if she's there.
Yes.
Can you read out all the points? This is what Blaine, Bobby Dassie's brother, said about the computer. Let's go for it.
Number 9, there was only one computer at the residence.
There
and
was
it
only one computer at the residence, and it was always in Bobby's room, sitting
Never-
near a desk.
Neverly.
Oh, yes.
So I'm getting, I don't recall to read
Oh,
this one.
I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
No problem.
Everyone is so keen.
There was only one computer at the residence, and it was always in Bobby's room, sitting near a desk. Number 10, the computer had a password. Number 11, the computer
I
had
don't hear it. I don't recall.
AOL. Can you hear me?
I hear her.
Okay.
Yes.
I can hear her.
Number 11, the computer had an AOL dial-up internet connection. Number 12, Bobby was the primary user of the computer. Number 13, at no time did I ever do searches for pornographic images or words related to pornography, words related to violence, words related to death, words related to mutilations, words related to torture, words related to guns or knives, words related to Teresa Halbach, words related to Stephen Avery, words related to DNA, or words related to dead, mutilated, or dismembered female bodies. Number 14, at no time did I ever create a folder for Teresa Halbach, my Uncle Stephen, DNA, or news stories on the murder. Number 15, the only time I used the computer was to do my homework and occasionally send instant messages. Number 16, I remember my mother Barb hiring someone to reformat the computer, but I'm not sure who that person was. Sorry about that. My dog.
Either that or someone's throwing out their computer. So thank you so much. I don't recall. So if you read what Blaine said in his affidavit, what's Blaine implying here about the computer? What's he implying?
It was Bobby's, basically.
Yep. And did Blaine do any searches for any pornographic or questionable material?
He said he didn't. I'm not sure I believe that necessarily.
Yeah,
but
I don't believe that. I just don't.
Yeah. Correct. So you notice both brothers pointed a finger at each other. Bobby said, no.
Yep.
Blaine and Brendan, they're the primary computer users. Blaine said, no. Bobby was the primary user. I just use it for my homework. Yeah, I play a little bit of games, send a few little messages. But no. Bobby was the primary user, right? Guys, do we have any other comments?
I want to say welcome to our super duper mod, Catnip.
Welcome. Thank you so much, Catnip. So the investigators, Fassbender and Wiggett, asked Brendan Dassie during one of his interrogation sessions. Now, Neverly, do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Would you like to read out Wiggett? And is just Rhonda there? She may have
Yes,
just Rhonda.
I'm here.
Yeah. Would you
Thank
like to
you.
read out Brendan's response?
Yes.
Yep, let's go for it.
Wiegert, is there anything on your computer that we should know about? You talk to anybody about this online?
Not really.
What do you mean, not really?
Well, would ask them a question in that,
Like what kind of question?
like if they like Stephen and that.
What?
Right? You're right. So this was during the May 13th interrogation
Oh,
of
dear
Brendan
God.
Dassie, right?
Yeah,
In
I remember.
2006.
Yeah.
Yep. Right. So, quite
Well-
clearly, Jack 61.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to add, everybody, please remember this interview is 2 days after Fassbender was handed the Veely CD. 2 days.
Yep. So,
And that's
Yep.
kind of the truth. We've seen Brendan's internet usage and asking people, do you think he did it, or
yes.
things like
Yep.
that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Correct.
There's some instant messages. So
Yep. Correct. So, quite clearly, the investigators are asking all the boys about their computer. Bobby Dassie goes, no. Minimal use. No. Blaine, no. I just did my homework. I didn't view any pornography. Brendan Dassie, he didn't come forward. Oh, yeah, we looked at a little bit of porn. Nothing. Just a couple of instant messages. So if we look at why is all this strategic, have a look at the next slide, Jack 61, right? What did they refer to the Veely CD as, or the computer analysis? Jack 61, would you like to read it out?
I will. Okay. Our computer analysis of Steve, Teresa's, and Brendan's computer, Mike Veely of the Grand Chute PD analyzed the hard drives of these three and found nothing much of evidentiary value. I'll read that again. And found nothing much of evidentiary value. Don't roll your eyes.
Yep.
We may wish to introduce the fact that they looked. This step eliminates Officer Veely as a witness, and just so that everyone understands what R is, what this is. This is a part of the stipulation project that Kratz sent to Buting and Strang. I think he started this shit in December of 2006, right before trial. Things he wanted stipulations to, because he didn't want Veely on the stand.
Correct. Now, Yep. Sorry, Jack 61. Continue.
No, I was just going to say in the document it says 7 CDs, contents of Brendan Dassey's computer. Brendan Dassey's computer. It's such bullshit.
Yep.
It's
Correct.
misleading and it's wrong. And Kratz knew it was wrong.
Yep.
He knew it and he did it anyway.
Yep.
And, even the 7 CDs of the contents, they were encrypted with the in-case-to application. So anyway,
Right.
go ahead.
So don't you think this was a rather clever disguise and strategy by Kratz?
Well, of course.
Because he labeled
Misleading.
it as Brendan's computer.
Yep.
Who was the defense only allowed to call up as a Denny?
Brendan.
If they'd analysed and got the Valey CD and the report, and they found all that material, and they're going, oh my God, this is on Brendan's computer, would it have looked good for Brendan?
Well, no, it would look terrible if it was actually his computer.
100% correct, right? So they agreed to a stipulation. Okay, Mike Veely doesn't have to take the stand. Now, if they didn't agree to the stipulation and they analysed the Valey CD, do you want me to read out what Strang said in an affidavit? I didn't give Jack 61 the slide. Do you want me to read it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is what Strang would have done had they had the Valey CD and analysed it. I quote, "We would have used the information in the Valey forensic analysis to support our motion by strengthening our showing that Bobby Dassie was an alternative suspect. At a minimum, the information would have gone to Bobby Dassie's availability and opportunity to commit violent crimes against and kill Teresa Halbach on October 31st, 2005, to his sexual motive or other deviant motives to do so, and to the credibility of his alibi. We also would have sought to introduce evidence of incriminating internet searches that were made by Bobby Dassie, and would have confronted him on cross-examination with those searches and other information contained in the Veely forensic analysis." Note, that's not Kathleen Zahner. That's Stephen Avery's own defense attorney. So this crap and utter hypocrisy shown by a lot of people in the community of going after Bobby Dassie as a Denny, what do you think Strang and Buting were going to do? What were they going to do?
I think you read it out there plainly.
There you
They absolutely used it.
Yep, they would have used it against Bobby as a viable third-party Denny suspect. Boom. And had they,
I think it's very strange how the people that get so upset about this and try to disprove that it was Bobby or whatever using the computer. Again, I'm going to say they weren't going to try and convict Bobby. That's not the whole idea behind this. It's the idea that he was a possible Denny, a possible somebody else that could have done this crime other than Stephen and Brendan. So
correct.
The possibility is there that it could have been Bobby. The computer in his house. He was there when Teresa was there. It could have been Bobby.
A reasonable doubt would have been formed, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're not trying to convict Bobby. And neither is Elaine. She's trying to get a Denny. They're two very different things.
Correct. 100% correct. Neverly, Do you have
I would
a
like
comment?
just to thank JD, our friend, who reminded us in chat that Fassbender said in Scam that he has tons of experience in cybercrime, right?
Yes,
So he
yes,
would have known where the discovery of these vile searches on Bobby's computer would have led to, and how the whole thing would have played out. Hence the disappearance and the, halting of it, to giving it to KZ and to, doing this. Even this stipulation was such a huge blow for Stephen's case, because if they
correct.
put Mike Veely on the stand, God, it wouldn't be good for the prosecution at all.
Correct. And what do we keep on talking about? Perception. Perception at the time in 2007. Now in 2024, it's much harder, much, much harder. But during the trial, this potentially could have been very, very devastating. Also, take into account John LeQuern, the propane tank driver, and the excellent point that Susan made a couple of weeks ago. Well, what happens if that really was Teresa's RAV4 and was being driven by somebody else with Teresa in the back, right? And LeQuern saw the RAV4 drive past him, didn't see the driver. When you start accumulating all these pieces of evidence, they start stacking up. And now, with the observation, if indeed it's true, of Tom Sawinski and Baresh, and all the anecdotal evidence of others seeing the RAV4 off the property, all that now starts to be accumulatory, and it doesn't look good. Jack 61.
And we can't forget about Kennedy and his past either. We just can't. I mean, I can't just let it go as somebody
Correct.
that shouldn't have been looked at pretty significantly.
Correct. 100% correct. And remember, he was charged and convicted for possession of child pornography.
That's right.
I don't believe anyone received a slap on the wrist for the child pornographic material on the Dassie computer. Did anyone hear anything?
Nothing.
No.
What was the question? I'm sorry.
Did anyone receive a slap on the wrist for possession of child pornography on the
No.
Dassie computer?
No, nothing was investigated as far as I'm aware of.
No. And to answer Stuart's question, Bobby didn't have a criminal record as far as I'm aware. No.
There was some juvenile stuff that we don't really have access to and know the full story. I do know that, but other than that, not that I'm aware of, no criminal record.
Correct. Well, the investigators didn't stop there. They also talked to Barb, right? So let's have a look at that. So what Barb said about the computer was very, very interesting as well. So this was case 02, the 10th of November. Just Rhonda, do you see the top portion?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Would you like to read that one out, please? Just the top portion.
Yes.
Thank you.
Barbara was asked if she knew she had dial-up through American Online, AOL, during October 2005. Barbara stated she did not remember if she had AOL dial-up or not. Barbara was asked where the computer that they had at the time was kept, and she indicated it was a tower-type computer, and she thought it was kept in one of the boys' rooms. Barbara believed that it may have been in Bobby and Brendan's room, but she was not positive. Barbara stated the computer was also left in the living room at one time. Barbara was unsure as to whether the computer had a password. Barbara stated everyone used the computer, and her ex-husband, Tom Yanda, was on it all the time. Barbara made the statement that she never used to lock her house and that anyone could go in there. Barbara was asked if she still had the computer that we were speaking about from 2005, and she indicated she did. Barbara was asked if we could have access to it, and she indicated, quote unquote, take it.
Now, why on earth are the investigators in 2017 asking to look at that computer again at Jack 61?
Well, I don't remember all the particulars, but I can't remember if KZ had already started going that direction or not, but I think she had, wanting access to it. And because she, remember, guys, we have to think about all the other things that she had asked for
Yes.
just prior to this time frame. And of course, Judge Angie, she shut down the PCR. She shut it down.
And when
But
did KZ get the VLCD? I think it was prior to this.
No. It was May of 2018. And
Okay.
on top of that, when Jeff Wish and I can't remember the other DCI agent that took the hard drive from Barb's computer, they kept it for 149 days. 5 months they kept that hard drive.
Wasn't
Why?
that Wish and Dietering
It was
two
Dietering.
officers who were re-interviewing Bobby?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
And was that in 2017 as well?
Yes.
It was
Yep.
November.
Yep. At his house, and you can hear his baby son, I think, was in the background.
And it was
Yep.
so casual, so informal.
Yep.
This is when Bobby said that deep down inside, I know I didn't do it.
Yes, that's the one. Correct. So the investigators took the computer again. So if we can just scroll up a little bit, Jack 61. Neverly, do you see the next bits? Are you able to read that out?
Sure.
Yep. Thank
The
you.
highlighted part, yeah.
Yep. Highlighted part. Yep.
Barbara was asked about Brad Dassie's affidavit regarding her asking to have the computer reformatted. Barbara stated this did not take place. Barbara stated she wanted someone to clean her computer as it was running slow. Barbara stated she believed this conversation took place, quote, way before this, end quote, prior to October 31st, 2005. Barbara remembered Brad asking her about a password and that he thought he could do it at home. Barbara stated once again she never asked Brad to reformat anything and just wanted to make the computer faster. Barbara was asked about her knowledge of any pornography on the computer. Barbara stated she did not download any pornography and did not know if anyone who downloaded pornography. Barbara stated her ex-husband, Tom Yanda, would view pornography and he had 8 to 10 VHS tapes of pornography. Barbara indicated she never saw Tom view pornography on the computer.
Thank you. So
interesting. Didn't we just read that Blaine said that his mom wanted to reformat the computer?
Yep. And again, we've got this controversy about the computer. We've got this controversy that nobody knows anything about pornography, and yet the Dassie computer was filled to the brim full of it. Is anyone surprised that no one is owning up to the pornographic searches? Is anyone really surprised?
No.
No.
Not at all.
Another thing I find kind of interesting is
yes,
nobody has said that Barb used the computer. Why would she want to make it faster? Why would she have anything to do with it?
Yep. Correct.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, unless the boys complained that the computer was running really slow.
Yeah.
That could be.
And just remember back in that time frame, and I mean, even now, it's worse now, but I mean, I remember it. I mean, there were a lot of viruses, download little games and assholes would put these little.
Especially if you're looking at porn.
Yes.
Well, I mean, even in just like, because there were a lot of games that were on like PlayStation and or Xbox or whatever that got ported over to a sim. So these assholes would insert a virus into these sim games that you could play on your computer. Now you got a damn virus of some kind. I remember it very well. So it's possible that could have happened. I don't know that. I'm just saying.
So if you went to any of these peer-to-peer websites where you can download music, games,
Yep.
pornography, or whatever,
Torrents.
absolutely guaranteed you're going to download a virus or a Trojan horse or whatever,
Yep.
right? But it's interesting that when the investigators talk to the Dassie boys, nobody seems to know anything yet. There was a lot of material on the computer. So this is the challenge. If we have a look at the next slide, unless we got any comments. Guys, do we have any comments or questions so far?
Yeah, we've got a number of questions. I've just been highlighting and those that we can answer immediately.
Yep.
So we'll get to the questions.
Okay. Awesome. So let's have a look at the next slide, Jack 61.
Yep.
So this is the fundamental problem that Kathleen Zellner has, right? Now, this image here was taken on November the 6th when the two detectives walked through Bobby Dassie's room. You can quite clearly see the computer in Bobby Dassie's bedroom. Here's what Kathleen Zellner has to achieve and prove. She's got to prove that Bobby Dassie was in his room by himself on the computer, right? Only Bobby Dassie. Kathleen Zellner has to show that Bobby Dassie had a fascination with death, had a fascination with torture, bondage, pedophilia, that Bobby Dassie was compulsive, obsessive, spent hundreds of hours on the computer, and downloaded thousands and thousands of images. The state know this is going to be a weakness for Kathleen Zellner, right? So the issue here is of specificity. Jack 61. Do you have a comment, Jack?
I'm sorry. I forgot to mute. Continue, Doc.
Yep. So here are the arguments, and don't worry, I've heard all of them. Well, Bobby Dassie wasn't the only one in the household, right? He had his brothers there, predominantly both Blaine and Brendan. So they could have used the computer before going to school. So any time before 7 a.m., hey, Blaine, Brendan could have used the computer for doing computer searches. So you need to take that into account. Well, what about Blaine and Brendan when they actually returned home from school, right? They could have used the computer. And remember, anytime after 3:45, guys, they could have used the computer, right? So you need to take that into account. What about Brian, his other brother? Sure, he was living with his girlfriend, but he could have come over. What about Tom Yunder, the stepdad? He could have come over even though there was a divorce and he had left, I think it was late October. Hey, he could have done computer searches. What about other family members? What about potentially Stephen, right? Or friends? They could have come over. But it gets worse. You need to consider the weekends when mainly all the boys could have been home. What about school holidays when the boys were home? And what about when some of the boys or one or two of the boys were home from school due to an absenteeism or a sickness, illness, whatever? So as you can see, it's going to be a challenge to try and place Bobby Dassie by himself in the bedroom looking at the torture, bondage, pedophilia, right? Bobby Dassie, he was 19 years old at that time, and he worked from between 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. He did a late shift, night shift. He says that when he comes home, he sleeps to about 2:30 p.m. So as you can see, you have to determine specifically that only Bobby was looking at this material. So guys, would you agree? This is not easy, correct? Or what? Would you guys agree? This is not a trivial thing to do.
No, not at all.
don't-
Especially when you put the latest Judge Angie's stipulation or a requirement or a comment. What I don't know what it is, honestly. But when she said that you need to provide a witness that he was doing that,
Correct.
it's impossible.
Correct. So you, Kathleen's on it. Sorry, did somebody else have a comment?
I think Rhonda did.
Yeah, just Rhonda.
Thanks, Jack. I was just going to say, I just feel like it's almost impossible to prove. Honestly, I mean, I had 5 sons, and I know at least 3 of them during those times, during those years, were looking at porn, and we were all using Napster and LimeWire and Kazaa and all those peer-to-peer sites for downloading music, and MySpace even. And I just remember all the pop-ups that were practically constant, all the viruses that our computers got. There was no way I could ever. I would yell at all of my sons every time I would get a pop-up. Why am I getting fucking porn pop-up? Because I just assumed if I was getting those pop-ups that they were looking up porn. I know they were. I'm not stupid, but I also did learn that it did have a lot to do with those peer-to-peer sites. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I could never. All of my boys pointed their finger at each other, and it wasn't me, and it wasn't me, and it wasn't.
Yeah, it was him.
Sure as hell wasn't me, you know. And
Yep.
so there was just no way to prove. I just feel like it's, you know, I support KZ and what she's doing, and like I think like what Susan said, you know, she just has to. She's not trying to convict Bobby of this crime. She just has to show that he is a possibility. And I feel like this stuff with the CD, I don't know, or with the porn searches, I think it's a bit of a reach.
Yep. So thank you, just Rhonda. So look, there's no question about it. It's a challenge. And I have a look at Falk Jr.'s question. 100% correct. So even though I haven't got it on the screen, we had actually covered this in a previous podcast, and I'll quote it, right? It says, this is from John Ferak's book. On October the 31st, 2005, the Dassie computer was used to access the internet at 6:05 a.m., 6:28 a.m., 6:31 a.m., 7 a.m. Potentially, you can say, no, that's the time that potentially Brendan and Blaine were still home, although the 7 o'clock one is cutting it pretty quick, pretty fine when the bus arrives at around about 7 o'clock. So potentially those searches, you can't rule in Bobby Dassie, right? Because the 2 brothers were home.
Well,
So
they'd have to have time to walk from the Dassie house down to the bus stop, because
take a
the
few
bus
minutes.
didn't come. They didn't come to the house. They had to walk down the
That's
road to
correct.
catch it.
Which would take a few minutes for sure.
That's right.
I'm playing hardball here, like thinking
Gotcha.
like an attorney, right? An attorney say,
Right.
no. The 2 boys were still home on October the 31st. They went and caught the bus close to 7 o'clock. No. You can't rule those searches in. But the computer was accessed at 9:33, 10:09 a.m., 1:08 p.m., and 1:51 p.m., nearly half an hour before Teresa was there. So the argument is, well, did Bobby Dassie really access the computer, or did the computer just come on? But the problem is, if you're doing active searches, you actually have to be on the computer searching for that material. Bobby Dassie said, no. I was sleeping. I'm a heavy sleeper. And correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Ken Kratz, even on convicting a murderer, admit, so what if Bobby Dassie lied that he was asleep? Did I hear that correct?
I think he did. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yep, correct. So it's quite obvious that if someone was accessing the computer on October the 31st, between those two times, and nobody else was home. Barb was at work. The two boys were at school. The only person who was home, exclusively home, was Bobby. I don't think Stephen Avery went over there and used the computer. Otherwise, Bobby would have said, "Yeah, I saw my uncle come in." So,
Right, they all would have.
yep, if you put two and two together, the only one that could have used the computer on that day was Bobby himself, and he lied. For whatever reason, he lied. Do we have any comments?
Yeah, I just want to point out, and I think that, I don't know if we'll have everyone will agree, but the
Yep.
courts are not going to consider anything past
Nope.
October 31st.
No, you're correct. You're correct. You can go your hardest. You can microanalyze anything you want. The argument is, wait a minute, if Teresa Halbach was killed on October the 31st, why should I bother about searches done after she's dead? Now, the argument is, well, there are serial killers that keep on with their habit. They want to relive the experience. Don't worry, I've read all the arguments, etc., etc. But for the court are wanting to know, was there a build-up in the pornographic searches up to October the 31st? And can you prove that it was Bobby? Susan?
I think J.J. Falk made a very good point. He said you can't say that Bobby can be excluded from using it.
That's correct.
That
is correct.
Really should be all they need to have.
That is
To
correct.
make him a Denny.
That's 100% correct. You had a collection of boys, teenagers in the same household, potential friends, other individuals that came over, and there was a mass of pornographic material, some of which is very, very highly disturbing. The problem is, for Bobby, you cannot exclude him from every porn search. You understand? That's a very, very good point. You can't totally exclude him. And the courts will say, I'm only interested up to October the 31st. What happened after? I don't care. Guys, would you agree? They play hard ball. They want you to prove specificity. Kathleen Zellner is saying, well, he's here by himself between these two time periods. Yes, Kathleen Zellner needed to take into account holidays, weekends, sickness, etc., etc. But Bobby works. We know when he works. We know when he's at home. So the question is he accessing this material between the time he is home? So it might take him half an hour to get home. So anything between, say, 6:30 up to 3:40, 3:45, it's him. If the two boys, his brothers, are at school, his mum's at work, unless somebody else has come over, it's Bobby Dassie. Guys, would you agree? Is that fair enough?
I think it's fair. And when you take into consideration that Bobby worked night shifts, he actually was home alone the most.
Yes.
Because when the boys go to school, they go to school together and they come home together. So you have less of a chance to get some private time.
Yeah, correct. Think about it. One of the problems, and look, most of us are parents, most of us have got children, right? The hard thing is when you buy one computer and you got 2 or 3 kids, what's that going to end up being? It's going to end up being a what? A freaking disaster, right? Because when you have a communal computer, it's very hard to customize it the way you like, or do private searches or private conversations, etc., etc. You can set up multiple profiles, but they rarely ever work. So what most parents do is they buy a computer or a laptop for each child. Guys, is that a fair assumption?
If you can afford it, yes.
Can afford it.
These days.
Yeah.
Then, not so much.
And didn't we find out also that Bobby was talking to somebody using Brandon's account?
Yes. Yeah, there were
Yes,
a
that's right.
couple of very disturbing SMS.
DM or IMs.
Yeah, yeah, messaging. He was using somebody else's account, and he was talking to some young girls and inappropriate stuff. The whole thing, the whole gamut, right? So the problem that Bobby had, he liked to use a computer like everybody else on the
Well,
planet does, and he doesn't have specificity and exclusivity until everyone's out of the house. Jack 61.
and yet again, in this instance that you just talked about with these younger girls, and there was a webcam involved. Again, there was no investigation. There was, I mean, as far as we know, nothing was done, and this is a real problem, considering he was the state star witness. It's a problem.
That's 100% correct, and hence why I keep coming back to the utter hypocrisy of the entire situation. As Neverly said, hey, in a murder trial, put everything on the table. Correct, Neverly? Would you agree? Put everything on the table, good,
Yes.
bad, or otherwise. But here, it clearly was not. What was important here was obfuscation. Shit, this material is potentially very damaging to my star witness. Keep it out. Tell Strang and Beauty, no, nothing much of evidentiary value. Let's give him the 7 DVDs. Oh, you want to have a look at it a couple of weeks before the trial? Well, you need a program in order to do it. Strang and Beauty said, we never had the time. What is remarkable, guys, is that Kratz even said to Strang and Beauty, it's your fault that you believed me. Can you believe that? You shouldn't have believed me. When I said there's nothing of evidentiary value. Never.
Yes. And also they said, well, I was obliged to give it to you. I gave it to you, but it doesn't say when should I give it to you. So basically I could have given you a day before. It's your fault. I mean, it's up to you what you're going to do with it. So tell me that that's up and up. No, it's trickery. That's what it is.
Yep. So
Perceptions are what they are.
Yep. So the argument is, we gave them the raw data, the 7 DVDs. Too bad they couldn't analyze it and open it. They could have generated their own VLE-CD themselves. That's the court's argument, which meant that it wasn't a Brady violation. Brilliant. Right, guys?
Yep. I want to address this comment that I put up from Whiskey for Breakfast, and it's worth diving into this a little bit. They said, I don't think the courts will accept it unless they can show it was Bobby. Possibly Bobby isn't going to cut it. Now, I understand that comment. I really do. And based on what we've seen, and especially Judge Angie's order, her last one before she ran off the case, she set the bar to an extreme level that no one could ever meet.
Correct.
So what Zellner did in her last brief, she cited multiple cases where the courts have ruled you don't have to do that. You just have to show this potential, this linkage. Yep. You didn't have to prove it 100% because there are times you can't do it. You just can't. So and this bar that Judge Angie set, no one could reach. No one. I don't care. I don't give a damn what you had.
Oh, 100% correct. But it's the old adage, right? A mother goes out to work, comes home, 2 little kids, they've broken a plate, or they've eaten all the chocolates.
Not me. Not me.
The mother asks, who did it? And say you got 2 sons. They both point to each other. He did it. If you're in an Italian household, both of them will cop it, correct? Both of them will cop it.
Yep.
Even if one of them actually did cause the damage, both of them will cop it equally. Here, you must have and demonstrate specificity. And even if there is specificity, what Judge Angie said will blow your mind. Right? Think about this. The judge doesn't even care that potentially Tom Sawinski saw Bobby and another gentleman pushing the victim's vehicle. The judge, she didn't even batter an eyelid. So now trying to establish a motive through viewing of pornographic material, the state ripped Kathleen Zellner apart. Why? Specificity. You want to claim him as a third-party Denny Prong and show motive, you have to prove that he downloaded torture, child pornography, all this inappropriate material, and it was only Bobby that did it, right? And that's a very, very hard task to do. Jack 61.
Yeah, that goes directly to Judge Angie's decision and order, and some of the like jaw-dropping shit she put in her brief, her reply. It's just stuff that's like, and again, I have to wonder, this got the attention of the chief judge, and they're like, "What are you doing? Why would no one can do that?" And so suddenly she's off the case after over a decade, just gone.
Yes. All right. Unless there's any questions, guys, let's continue. So now
we've got a number of questions, Doc, but me and Rhonda are just highlighting them. We'll get to them at the end.
Oh, fantastic. So now let's go back into the book. Now we're looking at the responses that Judge Angie said to Kathleen Zellner, right? Susan, do you see that one?
Yes, Doc.
Yep. Let's read the responses of Judge Angie to Kathleen Zellner.
Judge Andy says the state argues that the defendant has fallen short of establishing that Bobby Dassie was, in fact, the person who conducted the computer searches in question, or that the searches conducted were probative or relevant to prove that anyone had motive to commit murder in October of 2005.
Does anyone want to make it?
Well, you just got to flip the shoe on the other suspect, Stephen. If they found all this stuff on his computer, then what? Right?
Yeah. Toast.
Kratz would have had a parade, and we all know that. It's such hypocrisy from the court of Wisconsin. I don't give a damn who the judge is.
Yep, 100% correct. So again, guys, the state would have used the advantage of the statistics, the amount of pornography that's viewed in America, especially by teenagers, but the judge didn't even batter an eyelid about the type of material that was present on the Dassie computer. The judge's argument is, well, how do you know it was just Bobby, right? And as we've alluded to, it's very difficult to prove specificity, even if Bobby downloaded it, because there were other boys or other people in the household at various times. Boom, right? You've got the issue of, well, maybe he did, maybe he didn't. All right, let's have a look at the next.
I think that with the citations that Kathleen provided in her brief, in her reply,
Yes.
I think she's laid out pretty well that he had access. There's a link there, and so she doesn't. I mean, in her view, and from what she put in her filing in these citations, she doesn't have to prove 100% that he did it. It's that, that there's a link that he could have done it. It has to be included. Yep, that's right. Okay.
All right.
Next slide. Next slide.
Yep. So let's have a look at this one. Just Rhonda, would you like to read this one? We'll share it around a bit. Just Rhonda, can you see it?
Yes. Yep,
Okay.
I can see it.
Yep. Let's go for it.
Page 13. The state notes that there are no citations to any facts of record establishing Mr. Dassie's whereabouts at the time the searches were conducted, or any evidence that conclusively establishes that no other person had access to the home or computer at the time in question.
Check 61.
Did you see my eyes rolling from where you guys live at in the world?
Yes.
This is the shit I'm talking about. She's saying you have to prove 100% that he's the one that did it, and that's not true for Denny.
I agree, Jeff.
Yep.
Not only that, but I think that a possible way to make Bobby a valid Denny as opposed to the other boys, or Stephen for that matter. Not only do you have the computer searches that we all agree there's really not a way to prove that he did those searches alone by himself, but also when you add that to the other pieces, Sawinski and the Sawinski call and the pushing of the vehicle, those are now that connects. I feel like that the three of them together, even if the searches are only a possibility, you have three pieces of a puzzle or whatever that would make him a likely or a very possible Denny subject.
And those instant messages to those
And the instant
younger
messages, yeah, right.
younger middle-aged teenage girls, that too.
Correct, 100% correct. Do we have any other comments? We're all good? All right, let's have a look at the next page, Jack 61. We're going through this really well. I don't recall. Do you see this one?
Yes,
Okay, let's go for it.
page 13. The state further disputes the defendant's conclusions that law enforcement considered pornography or sexual assault as a motive for the murder in this matter.
Now, does anyone have any comments here? No? It says,
Okay, hold on.
yeah,
The state further disputes the defendant's conclusion that law enforcement considered pornography or sexual assault as a motive for the murder in this matter.
mhm.
Didn't they say that Stephen sexually assaulted her?
That's right. That's one of the charges that got added after
Exactly.
Brendan's coerced confession. Again, it's such hypocrisy from the state.
Moving
Yes.
goalposts, that's what it is.
That and that if they've said, we've already said this, that he expected to find that on the computer on Stephen. So
In fact, Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide? All you have to do is go to the newspapers, and there it is in black and white. And this is Tuesday, November the 15th, 2005. Neverly, are you able to actually, what I'll do, I'll show you another picture. But quite clearly, if you look at this newspaper clipping, it says here, clues sought on Avery computer. And I quote, police look for images of pornography, torture, and death. Look at the time. Look at the date. Is this before they knew about the Dassie computer?
Well,
Way
allegedly.
before.
Well, allegedly it is, according
Yeah,
to the
this
them
was-
grabbing the search warrant on April 21st, 2006.
Yeah, this was
But
2 weeks after the 31st.
Yep. So the police were looking for, let me quote, images of pornography, torture, and death on Stephen Avery's computer. Which computer did they in actual fact find images of pornography, torture, and death on?
the Dassie computer.
The Dassie computer.
I
And
mean,
who happened
all that was
to-
on all that was on Stephen's computer were pictures of him and Jody. That's it.
Right. Which are totally legal, right? Between them two, right? So you now have statements, and don't worry, we'll read it. I'll get Neverly to read the next one. We've now got a search warrant looking at Stephen Avery's computer. What are they looking for? Pornography, torture, death. They find exactly this material on the Dassie computer, which just happens to be in the home and bedroom of their star witness, Bobby Dassie. So they've got to drop this like a 10 tons of bricks, because potentially, oh my God, we've already let it out that we believe that this was a sexually motivated crime. Stephen Avery is a sexual deviant, is a sexual pervert. He did this to Teresa Halbach, etc., etc. And they even put in the clues in the newspaper Go to the newspapers. It's all over the newspapers. Boom. They're specifically looking for this material on Stephen's computer. Jack 61, when Veely analyzed Stephen's computer, what did they find? Did they find
shit? No, and no searches.
No.
Nothing.
No. So if we have a look at the next slide, right? This is also from a newspaper. Neverly, do you see that one?
Yes, I do, Dr. Silkman.
Yep. Have a read what Mark Wiegert said. Let's go for it.
Although the homicide charge was not filed Monday as expected, search warrants returned to the Manitoba County Courthouse linked, quote, pornography, torture, and death, end of quote, to a possible motive in the disappearance and presumed death of photographer Teresa Halbach. Warrants revealed that investigators seized Avery's computer last week. The hard drive was turned over to the Grand Chute Police Department. The department, like the State Crime Lab, does forensic examinations of computers. A search warrant returned filed by Calumet County Sheriff's Detective Mark Wiegert said he believes, quote, images of pornography, torture, and death may be relevant as to issues of intent, motive, or Stephen Avery's plan to commit violent or sexual torture against Teresa Halbach, end of quote. According to the records, an unspecified number of 5-gallon buckets also, quote, have been located on the Avery compound property, which appear to have been utilized to distribute the burned remains, end of quote, of an adult female body. So Judge Angie, we should send this to her.
Oh, she's aware of this.
I know.
Absolutely has to be aware of it.
But she's lying through her teeth, manipulating everything and ruling they should be illegal.
This is the grand hypocrisy of this entire case, right? Whereby for one person, you hit them as hard as you can. But when this material is actually not present on your suspect's computer, but on your star witness's computer, whether he downloaded it or not, it's in his bedroom. He's got access to it.
There's a link. There's a link directly to him.
You ignore it, bypass it, deep six it, and don't talk about it.
And that's what I said in the beginning.
Yes.
That usually star witnesses are the ones with the most dirt. And they get confronted by law enforcement and they say, if you do not flip, you're fucked.
Strike a deal. Yeah.
Well, can you imagine the pressure that kid was under?
A lot.
Huge.
And I'm not saying that Bobby killed anyone at all. That's not where this is going. So anyone out there listening, please get that out of your head. That's not what this is about at all.
But
it's the linkage and the inability and the manipulation that Kratz did. We just looked at his stipulation project. It was on Brundon's computer. Well, it wasn't his computer at all.
No, correct. So can you see?
And then to mock him, sorry, Dr. Silkman, and then to mock him and to tell him, you shouldn't have believed me, your fault for believing me, is just...
Yep, correct. And this is the approach and attitude that Judge Angie has used against Kathleen Zellner. To the point we're going, no. What do you mean it's sexual, this pornographic torture porn as a motive? No way. But Jack 61, if we look at the next slide, which is the search warrant, right? Jack 61, you want to read what point 10 is of the search warrant?
Yep, I will. Okay. Point 10, your affiant believes that based upon Teresa's lack of contact with her employer and family members and her vehicle being abandoned at the Avery Auto Salvage Yard, that Teresa Halbach is the victim of a crime including, but not limited to, homicide, sexual assault, kidnapping, false imprisonment, and theft. Respectfully submitted this day, 6th of November, 2005, Mark Wiegert, signed off by Ken the Prize Kratz.
Now, how on earth can this standard not apply to Bobby Dassie?
That's right.
They don't want to talk about it. They've whitewashed it. What motive? What are you talking about? But as you guys alluded to, and even in chat, Jack61, you comment.
It's the hypocrisy. That's all I want to say, Doug. It's such hypocrisy. It reeks of, I'm not. It just reeks of corruption. I'm sorry. I don't know any other way to see it. Somebody else, please help me view it another way. But
No, when you move goalposts like that, you could
that's
never
right.
satisfy the requirements ever.
That's right.
Now, the important thing here, guys, we haven't speculated. We have not made up anything. We've shown you official documents with all the material there and publicly available. It's right there. What Judge Angie said by whitewashing, what motive? That's not a motive. What are you talking about? That is as bad as Peg Lautenschlager whitewashing the MTSO and the investigation. They never made a mistake. No, it was just an honest miscommunication. That's how ridiculous it was. Susan.
Well, the funny thing is that you read this based on Teresa's lack of contact with family or friends and her vehicle being there. How do you go from that to sexual assault? What other proof do they have of sex? They don't have this stuff on Steven's computer. They don't. I mean, there's nothing to do with sexual assault.
Yeah, it's a leap, huge leap, disconnected.
I can get, homicide, maybe kidnapping, maybe false imprisonment, but where the fuck does sexual assault come in? It makes no sense.
Well, I don't know if you saw the forgot the podcast that Sean Reck was on, where they interviewed Sean Reck. Remember? I think Jack61 may remember, and they said, "Well, why do you think Stephen would have killed Teresa Hallbuck?" And he goes, "Because he couldn't keep control of his sexual urges.
Yeah, I remember that.
He wanted sex. She rejected him, and so hence he killed her." I'm thinking to myself,
this is November 6th.
Yeah, I know. But that was the whole message that convicting a murderer was putting forth. Stephen is such a bad guy.
Yeah,
he's such a bad guy. He couldn't help his sexual urges, and despite couldn't helping his sexual urges, he had nothing on his computer. And he even told Fassbender and Wiggett, "Hey, look, I watched a couple of adult movies. Jody Stokowski was fully aware that he had adult movies, and he had a cable service, right? Jody was aware of this. The guy's been in prison for 18 years. It doesn't mean he should do whatever he wants in a sexual manner. No way. But to use that in a search warrant on November the 6th, Susan, to me, it already means that they had a path. They already knew what path to look for as a motive.
Uh-huh.
Guys, do we have any other comments? Right? And just to show how ridiculous this was, let's have a look at the next slide, Jack61. What do? Why did they go back into Stephen's trailer on November the 8th? Because they were told to collect his porn collection. Yeah.
Well, there was conflicting. Remember, there's the conflicting discussion in Cam. Fassbender said, "You guys need to go and search everything." I think he said one last shot. Of course, this is the 6th or 7th time they'd been in the damn thing.
Yes.
But then it got turned a little bit later. They were told to look for porn, which is bullshit.
Correct. 100% bullshit, right? Now, the pornographic, correct me if I'm wrong, the material that he had in his room, guys, is that the type of material you can just go to a newsagent or a petrol station and just buy off the shelf?
Oh, yeah. Well, at least back then, I'm guessing it's probably the same now, especially in certain petrol stations that, they have a rack of magazines and newspapers that are big and up at the top, at the back, where kids can't get to it, or behind the counter. at the where you check out at the cash register. Those magazines are available in the
Correct.
public. You just go buy
Right.
it. Absolutely.
Yep. So when they confiscated this pornographic material, was there stuff on bondage, torture, pain,
No.
anything that was outrageous or anything like that?
No. Playboy, Penthouse. I can't remember if there was. There might have been a Hustler, which is a bit more hardcore. Again, it's still just women undressed, showing everything.
Right.
Nothing about torture or pain or
Yep.
death porn, any of that shit.
Anything
No.
extreme. So it was just main pornographic material, right?
That's right.
Right. Yeah, let's have a look at the next slide, Jack 61. So the very next slide. So that slide there is them going into the house. And of course, when the searchers went into the house, what did they find? I'll just wait for Jack 61 to put up the next slide. Do you
Are
have
we
the
not
next
on 50? Are we not on 53D2?
D3 now?
Oops, sorry.
No hassles at all. So when they went in for the last time, what did they find? The key. Right? The key. So they pick up the guys was go in there, find this mainstream pornography that anyone over 18 can purchase, and all of a sudden the key pops out. Do we have any comments?
And don't forget they found pictures of his ex-wife from 20 years ago.
Yep, which
Right.
really upset Colburn. Correct.
Well,
Correct.
you know, that in itself, you got to ask where stuff like that would have been stored. Who had it? Who had access to it? And I think we know where that trail ran off to, and that's back to the youngest brother. Right? Remember
What are you
all the
talking
stuff?
about, Jack?
You don't remember all the stuff that happened between Lori and Earl when Earl was just a teenager and allegedly
Steven's youngest brother.
Yeah,
Oh.
that's right.
Yep.
And Stephen allegedly directing Earl to take care of business while he was in jail with his wife, with Stephen's wife. Oh my God.
Terrible. Absolutely terrible. All right. Do we have any other questions? Okay. So Jack 61, I've only got a couple of more slides. Let's get on with it. Okay, Neverly, do you see that slide?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Would you like to read it out, please?
Sure.
Judge
Quote,
Angie.
Quote, assuming for the purposes of this motion that those 3 searches were conducted by Bobby Dassie, the state argues that a mere 3 searches conducted prior to the murder of Ms. Halbach failed to demonstrate that Mr. Dassie was a voracious consumer of violent pornography prior to the murder, thus failing to establish the theory of motive offered by the defendant.
Okay. So they got caught. They got caught. Jack 61. They got said shit. Okay, these porn searches does match up to Bobby Dassie and only Bobby Dassie. Their argument is, so it's only 3. Do you have any Jack 61?
Well, yeah, because there were deletions. We know that there were deletions prior to October 31st, and so we don't know what those are. We don't know what that material is.
Yeah, and so what if Bobby was pushing the car? Well, he didn't have the key.
Yep. So the argument is, yes, Bobby did download some questionable material. We can't deny that. There's only 3. Don't worry about it. So their argument is, okay, he did use the computer. He did download pornographic material, but their argument is, well, he's not a voracious consumer of violent pornography because he just did it 3. But in Australia, I don't know about America, all you have to have is 1 image of child pornography. You likely go to prison for that. I don't know how it is in the US. It's illegal. Child
I don't know
pornography.
how it
Yeah.
is in US either. However, again, the hypocrisy. If they found anything like this on Stephen, they didn't. And look what they did to the guy. Imagine if they did. And here they're just justifying Bobby's behavior, basically.
Or they ignored it. They don't believe it was enough to make them concerned, if you know what I mean. It wasn't a worry to them. At Jack 61, do you have any comments?
Well, never really said it. It's the hypocrisy. If they found it on Stephen's computer, it would have been a parade. But it's just on Bobby's sister's view. It's not a big deal, guys. Come on.
Yep, he's a teenager. You know, they all do it, etc., etc. All right. So Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? So we're just going through this relatively quickly. All right. Who would like to read this one out?
I can do it.
Neverly. Okay, let's go for it.
The state further states that the images and search results from the Dassie computer did not directly mirror the manner in which the victim was killed. The state notes that evidence offered by the defendant as proof of motive cannot be proved to have been obtained by or have been in the sole possession of Bobby Dassie. It just goes, she's relentless.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
she's trying to
how
prove
in
that
the
she's trying to
world-
prove that it had to be just Bobby. And that's not the standard.
Well, but look at this. What they found on the computer did not directly mirror the manner in which the victim was killed. How in the world would they know how she was killed?
Exactly.
Thank
The
you.
whole rapey thing and stabbing and this and that, that's all a figment of Kratz's imagination.
Correct. But don't you find that rather disturbing that in order to be potentially convicted and looked at, you needed to have somehow written like a diary that I'm going to do A, B, C, D to my victim. And I'm going to look at all this material on the computer to pattern match what I'm going to do to my victim. Because she's saying, the judge is saying, I quote, did not directly mirror the manner in which the victim was killed. They don't know how Teresa Halbach was killed. They found 2 cranial bone fragments with gunshot wounds. They don't know whether Teresa was alive or dead when she was shot. Brendan Dassie's narrative makes no sense and cannot be backed up forensically. How did they know that how she was killed? Can they actually prove a sexual assault? No, there's no body. That's why they dropped all those charges against Stephen. They can't prove it. So what do you think about what Judge said about what Bobby was looking at didn't exactly mirror how the victim was killed?
Well, that kind of pulls down that she knows how the victim was killed.
Yes.
So
Yes.
Where the hell did that come from?
Yep. Correct. Neverly, do you have any comments?
Well, I was going to say that. That's how it reads. I firmly believe they have no clue.
Yeah. Yep. Correct. And so because they didn't find an exact, I don't know, according to the judge, an exact images of how they think Teresa Halbach was killed, nothing to see here. We're nearly finished, guys. But if you think that's crazy, look at the next statement by the judge. So Jack 61, can we have a look at the next slide, please? And Susan, would you like to read out this one?
Sure enough.
Yep, we'll just wait for 53G to come up. We'll just wait. Yep, there we go. Okay, now listen to this one.
The defendant rests his motive argument on the premise that Bobby Dassie had an obsession with violent sexual pornography involving young women, and a fascination with gruesome homicides and deaths. However, the defendant's arguments are not supported by the evidence submitted. The defendant could have offered a witness who saw Mr. Dassie actually conducting. I'm going to start that over.
That's
The
all right.
defendant could have offered a witness who saw Mr. Dassie actually conducting any of the searches in question. Even more simply, the defendant could have offered evidence that the defendant was actually home at the time of the searches, rather than speculation based on typical schedules of the family to prove that Mr. Dassie conducted the searches. For fuck's sake.
So they're basically, the judge is basically saying, look, I actually needed a witness who saw Bobby to come forward to say, yep, my brother downloaded these images at this time. I saw him. Is any one of Bobby's brothers going to actually do that, even if they witness Bobby doing
Hell
it?
no. No way. Not a chance.
No.
Not going to happen.
Yep. So if you're doing these nefarious type of searches, are you going to do it in an open environment where people are looking over your shoulders?
No, this is
No.
not
Well,
regular porn. This is not like boobies
Correct.
and butts. You know what I mean?
No.
This is
Well,
like deviant
even
shit.
even if they did, they're not going to say shit about it. They're not going to talk about it. They're not going to, because that now we've got finger pointing that could happen. No, he did it, and so now you got a big muddy mess.
Correct. 100% correct. So again, the judge is setting an impossible standard, right? This is the same motive that the judge said, look, I don't care if Bobby Dassie was pushing the victim's vehicle. Nobody saw him with the key or the electronics. No problems, right? So you can't
He
prove
was just helping Stephen.
he was helping Stephen. So hence, because you can't prove he was in possession of the electronics of the key, he had no direct connection. So they're trying to downplay it, right?
I like
Again,
what Myra Pennington said,
yes,
commented. She said also, if that's the standard, they would never have been able to arrest either Stephen or Brandon, which is true.
correct. It's the case against Stephen and Brendan is circumstantial. Brendan Dassie, you can easily destroy his narrative as one of coercion, as one of a 16-year-old mentally challenged kid who got fooled by the read technique. He's not the first and he won't be the last.
Without representation. Yeah.
Without legal representation, you can easily, the forensic evidence does not back up the story, the narrative. The forensic evidence doesn't back up the state's narrative, right? That's the reason why Kratz wrote to Stephen to say, tell me what happened, right? Liberate your soul. Tell me what happened. They
After
don't
I
know.
put you in jail, in prison, without
Yep.
parole, on bullshit, now you tell me, you get to tell your
tell me.
story.
Yep, because they don't know. They do not know. Cuss Road, they don't want to talk about Cuss Road.
No.
They're not interested in Cuss Road. Cuss Road is non-crime scene for the state. So that's out. Jack 61.
Yeah, this also goes in, and I get hammered from those on the other side about my constant talking about our Bill of Rights and those protections that are built in for every citizen. And it's a saying from a TV drama show called Bosch. And he said, we all count or none of us do. We all count or none of us do. And that's true. But this goes directly to the Sixth Amendment, and the Sixth Amendment is due process. That's what it's about. So if the standard would have applied, this standard here would have applied, you got some pornographic images on your computer, which we were looking for. We've already said it to the news people and media. But over here, it doesn't apply. This is a due process problem, pardon me, for me.
Oh, 100% agree. But even the judge admitted, okay, we can't actually get out of this. But there were only 3 searches,
Right.
which meant that he wasn't a voracious consumer of this type of pornography. Nothing to see here, right? But the issue is, once you open that door, that he was viewing this material, that he was downloading this material, that makes it worse. Would you guys agree? It makes it worse for Bobby, not better.
Oh, absolutely. It makes it worse because,
Right.
again, you have to go back to the standard. If if this deviant standard was going to apply to Stephen, how's it not going to apply to, and I don't give a damn who they are, Bobby or Santa Claus. It doesn't matter. The standard has been applied by the state.
Correct. 100% correct. All right, Jack 61. If we have a look at the next slide, please. This is another response. Just Rhonda, do you see the slide?
Yes, I do.
Are you able to read this one out, please? Thank you.
Yes, you bet. No search results offered by the defendant directly mirror the elements of the crime in this case. There is no evidence, only generalized assumptions, that Bobby Dassie was the individual who conducted the searches on the family computer. The computer was not in the exclusive possession of Bobby Dassie prior to or after the murder. Only a very small number of searches were conducted prior to the murder of Ms. Halbach.
On the very
Oh,
day.
damn.
Yep. So when you have standards like this, if you're going to commit a crime, you do it in a group. Agree? You do it in a group. Because then trying to finger point, unless you leave a digital footprint of your searches or whatever like that, potentially, oh, well, look, I did give my password to person X. Person X could have given my password to individual Y. Individual Y could have sneaked into my house and used my computer without my knowledge. So if you give your password to another person, the whole world knows. So they're the type of arguments that are used, right? So what Judge Angie's saying, look, we know there was bad shit on that computer. You try and prove it that it was Bobby and Bobby alone. That's it. That's it. He may have done some of the searches, but he only did a few. How are you going to prove that he had sort of like an increase in computer searches on that material? How do you know that it became an obsession with him? It's a very, very difficult thing to prove. Jack 61.
Well, again, we've got 2 standards, and I've said this now like several times in a row, and again, and it's true. And if that gets ignored, now we've just got a kangaroo court, basically. The standard is the standard. And it's got one size fits all. For me, can't be this double standard shit.
For me too. You can't
Yep.
be shifting it as you please.
All right. Now let's flip it. This material was present on Stephen's computer.
Parade.
Wait. How about if the argument was, well, hey, look, my computer was open. I didn't have a password. I don't lock my house. I go work in the shed or the garage. I go look for cars at auction with my brother. My house is open. Anyone could come in and use the computer. Jody's in prison. Do you think Stephen would have been able to argue that none of those searches were done by him?
Not a chance in hell. No way. No. I'm sorry.
Why
They
not?
would have, because Kratz would have capitalized and hammered on that. So would Rieger and Fassbender. God, look what we found on his computer. Here it is right here. That proves. He's deleted a bunch of shit prior to this. We don't know what it was, but there were deletions prior to this date. So that would be their argument. I'm sure of it.
Yeah, interesting. All right, Jack 61, if we can have the next slide, please. Okay, This one's a very interesting one. I don't recall. Do you see the slide?
Yes.
Yep. Let's go for it. This one's a good one.
Despite several of Halbach's bones being inside Bobby Dassie's burn barrel, and that Zellner introduced her new eyewitness, Tom Sawinski, who saw Bobby Dassie pushing the victim's vehicle several hours before it was found, Judge Sukovich made this declaration in her August 2023 ruling.
Read it carefully. Read this one carefully.
The defendant has not met the burden under Denny to establish that Bobby Dassie had motive to commit the crime alleged, and as such, failed to meet the burden to admit the evidence offered to prove the existence of a third-party suspect for the commission of this crime.
Boom. Done.
Mind-blowing. Mind-blowing.
Bobby had no motive. Don't worry about all the stuff that was on the computer.
Yet,
No motive.
Stephen's motive was of the sexual nature.
Correct, without having any incriminating
Anything,
material on his
exactly.
computer
Let alone mirroring.
or mirroring.
And don't worry that he allegedly had possession of her vehicle 2 days after she's reported missing.
Correct.
Fine.
Correct.
Don't worry about it, guys.
No problems at all. Does anyone have any comments? All right. Now we're going to get into a very controversial area, as you'll see. Neverly, do you see the slide?
Yes, I do.
Would you like to read it? Pay close attention what the judge says about Bobby. Let's go for it.
The state goes on to argue that the defendant has offered no evidence to establish that Bobby had the necessary skills available to manipulate the evidence in a manner that would implicate the defendant. The state notes at the time of the murder, Bobby Dassie was an 18-year-old high school graduate with no criminal record. Mr. Dassie was employed as a third shift worker at the furniture factory. The state posits that there is no evidence of record that establishes how an individual of Bobby's age and experience would have obtained the scientific knowledge or skill to collect, transport, and plant the defendant's blood from his bathroom. Jesus. He didn't
Scientific knowledge or skill?
Yeah, scientific and
What the
skills
hell?
and training. Yeah. He wasn't performing a surgery, brain surgery. He was wiping off blood. Like he's
She
done,
makes-
I'm sure, many, many times before. In
All you
practical
need is a
life.
sponge.
Most ridiculous arguments.
All you need is a sponge.
Yep. Or a cloth to soak up the blood, add a solution to it, and then use it.
Distilled water, right? Correct, Doc? Distilled water.
Anything you want. See, the arguments I've had for years is that we're trying to think of a perfect planting scenario. Oh, the blood, it can't be coagulated. It's got to be this, it's got to be that. And so I get into a lot of arguments saying, no, you don't. All you need is something that has got red blood cells in it. If it's got red blood cells in it, when you visually look at it, examine it, you can swab it, right? To a crime scene detective or a crime scene individual, all they're looking, and Culhane even said it, because I look for a stain. If I see a stain that's red, I get a swab. I do a presumption test. So they use phenolphthalein. They add the phenolphthalein to the swab. If it turns pink, it's blood. Now, it's all got to do, all the sample has to have is hemoglobin. That's it. It's going to light up phenolphthalein. It'll give you back a pink result. You're thinking, yeah, but all right. So it doesn't have to be perfect for planting, right? So it's got to be red. It's got to have hemoglobin. The other thing is it's got to have white blood cells. Red blood cells don't have DNA, right? So if you isolate a tube of red blood cells, you can't extract any DNA from it. There's no red blood cells. Mature red blood cells don't have a nucleus. So what has it got to have? It's got to have white blood cells in it. So when Culhane does a secondary swab on the stain, she isolates DNA. And that's how you get your genomic profile. She's not looking at the blood from a serological point of view. Oh, it's coagulated, it's this. No. Is it red? Yes. Does it react with phenolphthalein? Yes. Means it's got hemoglobin in it. If I swab it again, does it have any white blood cells? Can I extract DNA? Yes. That's it. Doesn't have to be pretty. Later on in the presentation, I'll show you how much blood of Stephen was actually present in the RAV4. You'll be shocked, right? We're trying to come up with all these mastermind, a criminal setup. Oh, Bobby couldn't have been sufficient. Let me state again, I'm not blaming Bobby Dassie, and no one on the panel is. But it's the arguments that are used by the judge that say, look, he's an 18-year-old guy. He couldn't have done it. He hasn't got the necessary skills. Notice what Kathleen Zellner deliberately did. Kathleen Zellner was smart this time. She never pointed a finger at law enforcement because the obvious perpetrators potentially of planting or nefarious activity is in the crime lab itself. Because when you're in the crime lab, you can potentially fudge results very, very easily. Jack61 just backed me up. Kathleen Zellner tweeted about a crime lab analyst, DNA analyst, who's now under investigation, and she's been what, 3 decades?
29 years.
The one
Yep.
in Colorado.
Yep. And now they're
It's happened in so many states. This happened
Yes.
in Oklahoma in the lab.
Yes. Yep.
This
Well-
happened in
Yeah.
Massachusetts in the lab.
Oh,
This
huge
happens
time in Mass.
all the time.
And
Yep.
the
Yes.
shocking
Everywhere.
as that is, I think the most shocking for me at least, finding was when Dr. Henry Lee was found that he
Yes.
was
Yes.
fabricating freaking
When he
evidence.
was
I mean,
doing it.
that was just like,
One of the
oh,
most famous. Yes.
yes,
Highly respected. Yep.
he was
So
a
my
hero,
Yeah,
DNA
my point-
hero. Yeah.
My point is this. If you're handling the forensic evidence, you can alter the outcome very, very easily. If you're under pressure to produce results, and a lot of these crime analysts are under intense pressure to analyze results and be favorable for the state. Get it in your mind. Culhane doesn't work for Stephen Avery. Culhane works for the state of Wisconsin in the crime lab, right?
They're in the house or garage.
Put her in the house or the garage. It's very easy to manipulate a result. I've worked in a lab for years. You're basically in front of an ice bucket with tubes, pipettes. You can do anything you want if you're not careful. And that's why controls are so critical, right? So Kathleen Zellner was smart this time. She goes, if I point a finger at the cops, they're going to throw my filing straight into the rubbish bin. Right? Right, guys? That's exactly
that's right.
where it will go. Strang and Buting tried to do the same thing about the blood vial. Planting of the key went nowhere. Right? It incensed the state prosecutors. Right? How dare you try and blame the cops? So now she's blaming everything on Bobby Dassie. Right? You don't have to be a scientific guru in order to plant blood. The scary thing is this. If Tom Sawinski and Baresh are correct that they saw Bobby Dassie in possession of Teresa Horbach's RAV4, that means he had access. He had access.
You got a problem. You got a problem.
You had a massive problem, right? Now, I'm not saying, or do I actually believe that Bobby Dassie did all of these things, but it's a massive issue for Bobby if what Sawinski saw was in fact Bobby and another gentleman, right? So that's why. And what you have here, clear proof evidence, and you've seen it in black and white, how a judge is walking a minefield, literally, and putting out spot fires.
And maybe why she wanted off the freaking case, Doc. She's like,
Yep.
holy shit, I got to get the hell out of here.
Because she realized she's now trapped and has got nowhere to go. I've bullshitted enough. I'm out. I'm handing it over to somebody else. Right?
Yeah.
Kathleen Zellner delivered what the judge wanted in terms of a Denny. Oh, okay. You want motive, opportunity, a direct connection? I'll give you all three.
Yep.
Whether it's fair on Bobby or not, you want to play that game? And it's the state that played the game with the Veely CD. Jack 61, you cannot deny, guys. The state obfuscated it, secreted it away, and Tom Fassbender was on a panel for investigation of child pornography and internet activity used against children.
That's right.
Here he had clear-cut evidence of all this nefarious porn. What did Fassbender do?
Ignored it.
I'm going to put it in my cupboard and hope to God that nobody finds out. They did find out.
That's exactly right.
Yep. Jack 61, I can't see anyone on the panel. You might have to zoom back out.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, at one point, you were talking about Culhane, and this is, again, this has been an ongoing argument with the other side, but it's true. Culhane controlled every swab. Culhane absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, completely fucked up the testing on IMFL. Pardon my language, but she did.
No question.
I'm not a scientist. I'm not an analyst, but I've read the process. I've read the procedures, and she hosed it from beginning to end. There's no getting around that. And what makes it worse, she filed the deviation and wanted to use the deviation incorrectly.
Correct.
So she had it's more than a quadruple screw up. It was just one thing after another. And I'm thinking to myself, Willis did not understand. I'm sure of that.
No, he did not understand.
And it never got explained to the jury in these really specific layman terms. They didn't understand it either.
But if you notice, J61, this crime and technician, DNA technician who's being investigated, did you see what the charges were? Manipulation of controls and samples?
Yep.
And you think,
that's right. Huh? Where have I heard that before?
Hey, where have I seen this before?
Well, they're still going through her cases, but they're up to 625 so far, and there's thousands of fucking cases, thousands.
Yep. So when we say that Culhane switched swabs and labels, you know how we were like ridiculed by certain members of the opposing track, right?
Yes.
It's like, oh, that's bullshit. Nobody would do that. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah, look what's happening. Look what is happening. Yeah, they were ridiculing Zellner for saying that.
Yes. Well, the thing is that what's becoming worse now is that high-profile individuals who handle high-profile cases, notice what the complaint was. This particular analyst solved the unsolvable cases, right?
Yep.
And how do you do
like Kufol or
Kofod, right?
Kofod, yes.
Yep. How do you do that? How do you shift it from could be 50-50 to 99%? Yep, that person's guilty. You manipulate the results. You don't look at anything that's potentially exculpatory and only focus on the material that's inculpatory. So the lab techs are under extreme pressure to perform, right?
Sure they are. This is a really highly trusted position. I mean, I akin it to almost a cop, because the danger of the weaponization of DNA material and other forensic material is dangerous. And it has to be in the hands of people that are 100% trustworthy. Has to be.
And even in
my...
Sorry, Susan.
It just, to me, it looks like these people have a God complex.
Mm-hmm. Power. It's called power. It's called power, right? It's the kudos of being able to solving a crime that no one can solve and presenting evidence that is so unbelievable. You go, how the hell did you do that? And the answer is you very likely fudged results at your bench. David Cofford, remember when he went over the car? He was
Yep.
told, go over the car one more time. The guy finds a drop of the victim's blood underneath the steering column in a car that had nothing to do with the crime in order to secure a conviction. In this case, what do we get? We get a key that magically falls out of a cupboard that contains only Stephen's DNA. Only Stephen's DNA. We've got a bullet that's found after Wiegert tells Brendan who shot her in the head, and that bullet magically contains Teresa's DNA.
Found 5 months later. Yeah.
Yes, but when you look at the evidence in totality, look at the
And
key.
hood latch. Don't forget the hood latch.
And
hood latch.
the hood latch swab, correct, that had a
Yes.
huge amount of Stephen's DNA. When you look at the totality, you go, wait a minute. In Stephen's trailer, there's no forensic evidence of either Teresa or Brendan. None. Look at the garage. There's no forensic evidence of Teresa's DNA, blood, tissue, nothing to implicate a shooting scenario took place. The hood latch swab, only Stephen's DNA is present on the hood latch. Did only Stephen's DNA touch the hood latch? There's no blood. There's no anything else underneath the hood latch, underneath the hood of the car. So when you look at things in totality, you go, this is bullshit and completely fake. Look at the cremains. And don't worry, we're going to sum this up in a second because I've got a slide looking at the forensic evidence. But Jack 61, if you look at the next slide, the judge is saying, no. Come on, he's only 18. Well, I looked up crime statistics in the US by age. Okay, this is 2022. Look at the number of murders committed by someone of the age of Bobby Dassie compared to the age of someone that was Stephen Avery's age. You're more likely to find a killer who's younger than Stephen than in Stephen's age group. Is anyone surprised by this?
No.
I almost
not.
double.
Double. Yeah.
Yep. But what you're noticing, guys, younger and younger people are killing others younger. And that's
Unbelievable.
surely the state of Wisconsin has to know these statistics, because what Judge Angie said, saying, oh, he's only 19. He's not going to do something like this. And yet, look at the stats.
And another thing, I got to go back to that statement of Her Majesty Judge Angie when she said that Bobby did not have necessary skills available to manipulate the evidence, right?
Yes.
And that he was just an 18-year-old and blah, blah, no scientific knowledge or skills to collect, transport, and plant. As if, hypothetically speaking, murderers are the ones with the science degrees.
Correct. But the downside,
who know exactly how to clean up the thing or transport or whatever, plant stuff.
Yeah, correct. Both, the argument is that both Stephen and Brendan are forensic gurus, able to expunge every molecule of Teresa Halbach in 2 locations, including in between the garage and the house. You know that's complete and utter garbage. The problem for Bobby is that he's a hunter. He's a hunter. He knows how to shoot. He knows how to use bows. He knows how to kill. Furthermore,
and field dress.
He knows how to dismember and cut up an animal as big as him, right? You saw the deer in his garage. Furthermore, what did you find all over the place? Blood. He knows how to handle blood. Someone like Brendan Dassie faints at the sight of blood. Yet what the state are alluding Brendan did is complete utter garbage, because it meant that if Brendan saw any form of blood, he's going to be passed out, right?
And
But
Steven's not into hunting anyways.
no, not to the same degree, right? So you've got this ridiculous situation where the judge is saying, can't be Bobby, he's too young. He's 18, works at a factory or whatever it is. But look at the statistics. The statistics show that someone of his age is twice as likely to have committed murder than someone of Stephen Avery's age. Now, Stephen Avery did many questionable things against women. No argument. But are you now saying he's a murderer of Teresa Horbach and committed all those atrocities to Teresa Horbach on the eve of receiving the biggest payout he was ever going to get and seeing Kacerik and Vogel on the stand? It doesn't make any sense, guys.
Well, that's another aspect of the case, and I won't dive into it, that the other side downplays. That lawsuit wouldn't have mattered. It's nothing. Nothing was going on.
He would never
yes.
get $36 million. Well, that's
Yep.
besides the point. The
Yep.
amount that he would be rewarded to him. That's totally besides the point.
It's almost irrelevant.
Would have
It's
paid
up-
it.
Yeah, right. It's almost irrelevant about the payout. The point is they didn't want it going to trial. And even if, we have to add this. Even if it had went past Kacerik and Vogel had given their depositions, there still could have been a settlement prior to it, because judges encourage
would
in
have
these civil
settled.
cases. Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
That's what he told Colburn. That's what he told Colburn and Netflix. Sort your shit out outside the courtroom. Nope.
Yep.
Nope. Now, just going back to that lady who they're investigating. Remember the two ladies that were involved in testing of the drugs?
Oh, how to fix the drug scandal?
Yep.
Yeah.
Those two that got arrested, and there were tens of thousands of cases that had to get shredded, and everyone released. And they're now worried that they're going to have to test every one of the cases that this lady was involved in from 1994. Right? From 1994.
Yeah.
So
they're saying it's going to cost millions of dollars. That was in that article.
Yep. Now, if they find impropriety in even controls, this person bypassed the control, didn't take any into account, and hence made a false claim on a result, that's it. You're dead. You are dead. They're going to have to toss out probably all the case. You know why? Because everyone's going to come forward and say, how do you know there wasn't impropriety in my case? Right, Jack 61. Right, guys. That's exactly what had happened with the drug scandal that took place. They had to throw all the cases out. It cost
That goes
them
right back.
millions.
Yeah, that goes right back to what I talked about a few minutes ago. And this is the Sixth Amendment. It's due process.
Yep.
You have to follow the standard for everyone. The standards are in place. This is the big argument that they get into with certain people about Item FL. They want to separate the control sample from the DNA sample.
Which
And you cannot. It's one freaking test.
Yep.
It's not two. Even though there's two samples that have to be tested, it's one test. And they're like, oh, well, that control sample don't really. Yeah, it does matter. And that's why accredited labs use a negative control.
Yep. Like I said to you, the analogy I used was you make a batch of medication, right? A whole batch of medication. You then test the control. The control should be clean. In the control, you find contamination. You go, shit, do I release the drugs in society or do I throw them all away? Because my control is contaminated. That means I've got no faith that my samples can't be contaminated as well. What do you do? What does a company do? Risk
dump it.
Or throwing the material away and starting again? And the answer is you dump it and you start again.
it's like that other analogy you gave me, Doc. You go to your doctor.
Correct?
You're not feeling well. He does some tests, DNA
Yep.
tests, and comes back. Well, they do the test, and during that test, the negative control was contaminated, but the regular sample says you got cancer. It's a bad
Got
one
cancer.
too.
Yep.
Does
Yep.
are you going to trust that test, or do you want it redone? It's just that simple.
Exactly. And
Correct.
that's why Elizabeth Holmes and her whole
Yes.
hoaxy business or what she wanted to do, she was doing exactly like that. Exactly that. Yeah.
Yep. 100%.
And
All
she
right.
also had a whistleblower who said, "Oh my God, what's happening over there? She is lying through her teeth."
Yep. 100% correct. Right. So I'm going to follow that case very, very carefully because it's got implications. And that's why Strang and Buting, and Susan will back me up, they wanted fairness and equity in forensic DNA testing, in forensic testing, because it's very, very easy to manipulate results. Right, Susan? And we even donate money to a cause for fair forensic testing. Right? No one gives a shit of the shenanigans that occurred against Stephen. No one. However, if it was you or your family that were placed under the auspices of Culhane and the shenanigans that she did in the lab, I bet you'll be screaming from the rooftops. Because it's Stephen, it's the I don't see anything, I don't hear anything, I don't speak anything. That is the other hypocrisy. And in the court, how Norm Khan can say, people will understand. You got to have exceptions. I'm thinking to myself, you
You
just
gotta
threw
have common sense.
you just threw science down the toilet. Hundreds of years of science down the toilet in one hit. All right, guys, we got 2 more slides. Jack61, did you have a comment, sir?
No,
All right.
I'm just going to add to it and just say, yeah, Gon knows better, but he said, they just had to use common sense. Completely ignoring the test, the protocol. He knew the protocol. He knew it was a shambles. He had to know.
He knew. He absolutely knew, right? So, guys, here's the argument here. And this is what Kathleen Zellner is presenting as part of her filing. Now, I summarized all the forensic evidence, or the majority of the forensic evidence here. What forensic items are impossible to plant? So, we've got the RAV4. Inside the RAV4, you've got the hood latch swab against Stephen. You've got Stephen's blood. That blood is fresh. It's not from the blood vial, right? We know it's got Teresa's blood, so her saliva in the cherry Pepsi can. So that's from the victim. I'm talking about from Stephen. You got the RAV4. Is that impossible to plant? Is the RAV4 impossible to plant?
No.
No.
Is it only Stephen or Brendan that could have done that?
No, absolutely not.
No.
Okay, so the RAV4 can be planted by a third party. What about the blood? Is it possible? The hood latch, she even had a go about the groin swabs, right? So she implied the involvement of law enforcement, right? But the blood inside the RAV, is it possible to plant or impossible to plant?
Very possible. Absolutely. It's transportable. It's easy to plant if you've got it.
Okay. And Stephen, we know he bled. I believe it was November the 3rd when him and his brother Chucky went to Menards. All right. What about the number plates? Are the number plates impossible to plant?
Absolutely not. Easy to plant.
Fold them,
Very
walk past, throw them in. All right. Now, controversial. What about the cremains? The cremains in the burn barrel, the cremains in the burn pit. Now, I'm only talking about the Avery salvage yard. I'm not even talking about the Manitowoc County gravel pit. Is it impossible to plant cremains?
Absolutely not.
No.
Transportable. Easy.
what do you need to plant cremains?
A bucket, a shovel,
Yep.
Yeah, or
Done.
a box. Yeah,
or a box. Yep. Or
very, very easy to do. What about potentially bullet fragments and shell casings? That now, in effect, if item FL is bogus, then there's no planting. Those shells were because either Stephen picked them up from his grass, because remember, he mows the lawn and he says, hey, I pick up the shells and just toss them in my garage, or they came from Rollie Johnson from bullets that went inside his garage, because remember, he shot at gopher holes right next to the garage. So I don't even think we have to worry about the bullet casings. What about the burnt electronics? Are they impossible to plant?
absolutely not. Another easy one.
Easy, dump them in a burn barrel, burn them elsewhere, just dump them in. And finally, the key. Is the key impossible to plant?
Absolutely not. Easy.
So wait a minute. There's nothing there that's impossible to plant.
I mean, you know, if we'd have ended up with Teresa's blood smeared on his paneling, on his
Yep.
bed
Yep.
frame.
Big trouble.
Okay, now we got problems, but we don't have any of that at all.
Nope.
Well, whoever planted those, were they trained scientifically how to collect, transport, and plant?
No. I've had this argument many, many times. The dead giveaway is the RAV4 itself, right? The dead giveaway is the RAV4. Why? It's not where the blood is. It's where the blood is not. Guys, would you agree?
Yep.
If he's actively bleeding, you can't control where you're bleeding.
Steering wheel,
Yep.
hood latch, battery cables, gear shifter,
Everywhere. And also outside the RAV. Right?
outside
And
the
also
RAV.
outside the RAV4 as well.
Yep.
Right? It's the absence of the blood.
The key itself.
Yep. Correct. Everything looks planted. Here's where it gets bad for Bobby. Very bad. If Sawinski and Baresh saw Bobby Dassie with the victim's vehicle, shit. Look what Bobby is potentially in charge of. The RAV, the plates, the electronics,
The key.
the key. And if he killed her, I'm not saying he did. If he killed her, shit, the cremains. All of them. That is Kathleen Zellner's argument. What did they find on his computer? Well, questionable material that was disturbing. Who was the last citizen to see Teresa Horbach take pictures of the RAV4? Bobby. What alibi has Bobby Dassie got? A reciprocal alibi with Scott Tadich, and as
right.
Neverly said, is the only person who looked at his clock and said 3 o'clock.
Yep.
So when you look at it, I'm not saying Bobby did any of this, but it's an legal argument that Kathleen's in saying, wait a minute. If he's pushing the RAV4, the victim's vehicle, he could have done the whole shebang. I personally don't believe he did. And I pray to God that Tom Sawinski can be debunked, but it's looking pretty bad. It's
only a hearing. Only a hearing can satisfy these answers. Only a hearing.
Don't speculate. Go in front of a judge, rip Tom Sawinski apart, but by God, if he goes, listen, I phoned on November the 6th.
Yep.
Years before Man 1 and 2, years before Kathleen Zellner, years before anybody cared, and even before Stephen got arrested. So hence, Sergeant Seglob, what were you told? What did Sawinski tell you? I've had a lot of arguments. Oh yeah, but Tom Sawinski did these Facebook posts, 2016. So bloody what? It's what Sawinski told Seglob on November the 6th. That's crucial.
And what Seglub did with that information that we don't know.
Exactly. That's like the argument, well, you know, Bobby Dassie could have looked at all this torture porn after October the 31st. The judge is saying, well, I don't care. I don't care. Now, the argument is, well, you know, they'll look at the Facebook post, they'll look at his credibility, yadi yadi. The most crucial thing is, what did he tell Seglob? Did he actually speak to Seglob? The call got transferred. What did he tell him? If it was a tip, why didn't Seglob write it down on a piece of paper, then in turn hand it over to the defense attorney and says, these are the tips that we got? Was any of that done? No.
No,
No.
not at all.
When it came to Sawinski, no. So what are people trying to do? They're trying to destroy and debunk Sawinski because of the post that he did in 2016, right?
And completely ignoring the phone call that he made in 2006.
First, the argument was he's bullshitting. He never made that phone call.
Yeah, we need proof.
Then the phone call comes out. Oh, shit. All right. What are we going to do now? Oh, we're going to debunk him. His Facebook post. No. So the question is, if you want to get to the bottom of this and do it properly, get in front of a judge, argue it out, see if there's any merits. That's it. Forget your speculation and all this bullshit. It's the closeness of the time frame that is damaging. November the 6th, 2005 wasn't a year later, 2 years later, right? Yes, I know there are many, many issues with what Tom Sawinski said, but what did he tell Seglob, Jack 61?
That's exactly right. What did he tell Seglub? And then what did Seglub, because he wasn't on if you listen to that call, it's 1 minute and 7 seconds. The dispatcher dialed a number to get an outside line, then she dialed 7 digits. So that means she connected him with an outside phone.
Right.
And the call ends. And what did Seglub do with that information? Because he was at the command post. I'm assuming he was on scene at that time. We don't know what he did with it.
Yep. And don't forget, 1 day later, he's part of Search Team A. Right?
That's right.
That's when the electronics found by Siders, and all that stuff at Cuss Road. Very, very interesting, right? So here's my final slide for today, guys. A lot of people but it's Stephen's blood. It's Stephen's. How do you account for it? Let me tell you. See on the right-hand side, that's how much of Stephen's blood was in that RAV, right? At the bare minimum, 300 microliters, right? So if he bled on a piece of paper, I've heard arguments about, they got it from the... No. Any source that's got his blood, fresh blood, doesn't matter if it's coagulated. Add a liquid, liquefy it, and dump it on, right? To seed the RAV would have taken anybody a minute. You don't have to be a scientific guru. Just dump it in there, right? Now, the argument is, you've got to be very careful because if you go inside a vehicle, you could potentially put your own DNA in it. That's true. Just clean up after yourself. Wear a glove. Wear something. But the amount of blood that's in that RAV4 that belongs to Stephen, plus there was a blood flake, right? There weren't 6 drops of blood. There were 5 and 1 blood flake, right? So whoever entered in the RAV, if it wasn't Stephen himself, I don't believe it was, because if he was actively bleeding, you see blood drops absolutely everywhere. Kratz had to change his narrative. Kratz goes, shit, you're right. If he drove the car with a cut finger, it would have been everywhere. Steering wheel, gear shift, brake, you name it. There was nothing there. Nothing. So he had to change his narrative to say, Stephen cut his finger when he dumped the RAV at the pit. So hence, as he was coming out of his car, out of the car, drip, drip, drip. Except, why would he now open the back door and drip on the metal frame? That makes no sense. And why did Stephen stop bleeding the moment he opened the door and didn't leave any of his blood or DNA on any of the door latches?
That's right. Or the hood latch, the battery cables that were unhooked.
So the idea is, yeah, but that's Stephen's blood. Ask the deeper question and say, if he's bleeding, there should be a pattern consistent with how his Pontiac Grand Dam looked like. Drip, drip. The blood drops were in close proximity. Why? See the picture on the left? Actively bleeding finger. You're dripping blood. You can't stop it. Right? So then the argument goes, shit, this doesn't look good. Right? So as long as whoever planted the blood had access to the blood, it was very, very easy to do. It doesn't have to be pretty. Liquefy it, dump it in, walk away. That's it. Done.
And one more thing, when we're talking about this, and it has to be tied together. If he's dripping blood, that means he didn't have gloves on. Why aren't there any fingerprints of Stephen inside that wrap, or outside, or under the hood?
Correct.
He's taking gloves on. He's taking gloves on and off.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
And if he knew he bled, right, he would have cleaned up after himself. Right. Remember, the argument was, oh, they cleaned all the blood in the garage.
Yep.
They had bleached,
That's right.
they had thinner there. And are you trying to tell me that the forensic guru who cleaned 2 crime scenes now conveniently left his own blood in the wrap? So a Boy Scout can go, oh, wow, let's take a swab. It's Stephen. Yeah, we solved the case. See you later. No. If you deep dive.
That doesn't work. That doesn't work for me, Doc.
If you deep dive and you're honest, this is a shit show. This is a clusterfuck of monumental proportions, right? People go, no way it can be. Yes, it can be done very, very easily. I'm disturbed because the one person who absolutely knew he bled was, who knew that his brother bled?
Chuck.
Yep. Chuck knew his brother bled. Okay. All right, guys. That's the end of our presentation for today. What do you think? I think we covered quite a bit today.
Excellent. Outstanding. Yeah. And, trying to put this in terms of the many elements that we've covered here, trying to put them in reasonable terms where people can understand our point of view. We're not asking everybody to agree with it. Fine if you don't agree. Go off and disagree. That's fine. This is our point of view.
Correct. But I think but it's great that we present the facts.
Yes.
And you interpret the way you want to interpret. But
that's right.
Don't stop anyone presenting this material. Do not try and stop by using ad hominem attacks and other material that is to the level of a 5-year-old child to stop a group like Foul Play presenting this material, because you're going to fail and you're going to lose. If you notice, what we've done throughout all these podcasts is present the original documents, the source material. We haven't made it up. We've presented it and discussed it. We are permitted to speculate. And guys, we actually say when we're speculating, correct? If you
that's right.
think, nah, it's all bullshit, I believe in this, God bless you. No one's saying you can't. But don't try and prevent Foul Play from presenting this material, right? Because we believe that this material is definitely worth discussing and presenting. It's current, it's novel. John Ferak wrote it in his chapter. This is exactly what's happening now in real time. Neverly, did you have a comment?
Oh, I was going to say not just Foul Play, but any other group.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
Right. Right. And you know, we won't do anything to try to stop anyone from presenting what
No,
they believe.
no,
That's not what we're about at all.
correct.
So anyway. All right, Doc, we've got let's see here. We've got 21 questions, and these go back. Yeah, I mean, these go back to the beginning. Ones that you know, me and Rhonda starred. So Rhonda, do you want me to present these today? I know you're dealing with some stuff, or do you want to do it? It's entirely up to you.
If you don't mind doing it, Jack, I would
Not
appreciate it.
not a problem.
And
Okay,
anyone
this
can
first,
ask these questions. Anyone can.
yeah. So this is from Clive Coolidge. I think it was motive because Kratz and Steve's trial, because Kratz said at Stephen's trial, he used some of the content that was being searched. I can't remember what that is. What we're talking about, because this is a pretty early, like 6:15. So this is pretty early on.
I think computer search.
Probably.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. on that one.
Probably. I was
But-
confused by this
but-
question, but Clive has gone, so we can't again what he meant by this.
I don't think Kratz used any computer searches at trial.
No,
That I recall.
no,
No.
no. The Dassie
Mo-
computer,
mo-
that was a no-go zone.
motive to bury it.
Correct. And remember, they dropped the sexual assault charge and rape charge
Yeah.
against Stephen because
right.
they did not introduce Brendan Dassie as a witness in Stephen's
right.
trial. They did a separate, so they dropped that charge.
That's right. Okay, next question is from TJ. What was the date of the first suspect search that makes Bobby a suspect in framing Stephen? Well, the only thing I can remember right off the top of my head is that number one, we remember on one of the phone calls, Bobby's name was brought up, and that was either on the
Really?
4th or the 5th at the command tent. I think it was the night of the 4th.
Yep, it was done early.
Yeah.
But that wouldn't have anything to do with framing Stephen.
No, but as
No.
a co-conspirator, potentially as a co-conspirator. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
I
framing
can't.
was by Yep.
Go ahead, Doc.
well, the framing was by Kathleen Zona, who
Yes.
picked out Bobby Dassie as a Denny suspect. And as she was building up her case, things were getting worse. And then with the discovery of the phone call by Tom Sawinski, that just brought everything to a head. Yep.
Yeah.
And also Baresh. Yep.
All right. Next question is from TJ again. What was the size of the hard drive? I can tell you that I'm pretty sure Teresa's was a 40 gigabyte.
Yeah, wasn't that massive?
No. Well, back then, for a computer, that was pretty big. I can't remember. I'm thinking that Stevens was a 30 megabytes, and I can't remember what gigabyte, not terabyte. Those didn't come out till much later. And I think that the Dassie computer was around that same size as well, around a 30 or 40.
I reckon it's between 30 and 40 because it was distributed on 7 DVDs. DVD, I believe, can hold up to 4.7 gigabytes.
Yeah, single layer DVD can hold 4.7.
Yeah, so it's around about 30 gigs, correct?
Yeah.
And I think Kathleen Zona generated 4,500 pages of material.
Yes.
A huge amount of stuff.
It was.
Yep.
All righty. Next question is from Danny Brewer fan. And it says, does the prosecution dispute the findings at all on the disc, or is their thought just that it is irrelevant?
That's an excellent question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if I can just quickly answer it. Oh no, they know it's relevant, but and they don't dispute it. But what Kathleen Zona has to prove is that it was Bobby Dassie and Bobby Dassie alone that downloaded that material and was viewing that type of material.
From the state's point, but from the state's point of view, the actual citation says
Exactly.
it needs to be a link that he could have done it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah, 100. They know it's there because they got their own state investigator, Mike Veerley, to use computer software to extract the material. They can't dispute it. It's them. It's the state that found it. Then Hunt did a further analysis, and they can use software to recover material that's been deleted. So they can actually tell the material was deleted from the hard drive.
And we can't forget that there were, I can't remember the amount of information, but there are things that you can do with data, and like deleting it, that doesn't mean the data goes away. It goes into unallocated space. Remember this, Doc? They found information that was not dated, but it's in the unallocated space that is relevant.
Correct.
So, all right. Next question is from Justin J. Click on that. It says, from Justin, when and why did Barb format the hard drive?
Hard drive was formatted just before a couple of days before they seized it.
Yeah, it's like mid-April.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember Brad Dassie. He did an interview with Millbilly, a very controversial one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's a lot of tension about that computer, even
Absolutely.
to this. Yeah. It's serious stuff.
Next question is also from Justin. When and why did Barb format the hard drive?
Well, her response for formatting it is because the computer was going very, very slow. And she said that there were viruses on it. She was unaware, from my understanding, I'm not trying to say what Barb said. The impression was that she wasn't aware that there was pornographic material. And guys, everyone knows, if you've been to those dodgy sites where you're downloading music, videos, or whatever, your computer will fill up with malware and a whole lot of stuff, and it will slow your computer down to a point.
Rootkits.
Yep. To the point where it's bloody useless.
But Barb also said that Tom Yanda was the one who was looking at porn. So she was aware that there was porn on her computer.
No, not on the computer, on video. He was watching porn videotapes.
Yeah. He never 7 or 8 videotapes.
She never said that she saw Tom view porn.
Really? I understood that he was actually on the computer. Okay, my mistake.
He wasn't. No, you're right. He was on the computer all the time, but Barb never saw him seeing porn.
Correct. That's what was in that 2017 statement.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. All righty. Next question is from Anthony. We got a few questions from Anthony. Anthony says, is it a crime for DOJ not to investigate Bobby based on the suspected computer activity? Well, not now. Statute of limitations has long passed.
Yep. And also, they're not going to do anything to harm Bobby, right? Yep. Or to make it look worse for Bobby. Because if they do, then that's just going to open the door wide open. That's not what they want to do. That's exactly why Deidre went to see Bobby and said, well, what about this porn? Look, I only saw a little bit of it. Nothing to see. Oh, okay. And that's it. They never said, did you download child pornography on this computer? We've found evidence of child porn. Is this you? Right? Which is a crime. No, nothing. They just accepted it and that's it. Move on.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, next question. Another one from Anthony. Let me do that. And he says, so who was in Bobby's room on 31 October doing searches on the computer whilst Bobby sleeps?
It was Bobby.
Yeah, to our knowledge, Brendan and Blaine were at school.
Bob was at work. I don't think Stephen went over.
Brown was at work. Oh, go ahead, Doc. I'm sorry.
I was going to say there were some rumors that Scott Tadich was there around about lunchtime, but that's only a bit of a rumor.
Right.
And even Kratz admitted that Bobby actually had lied, that he was awake.
Yeah. Okay. Next question is from Clive again. Get that clicked. Okay. Clive says, I want to know what Fassbender's reason is for having the Valley CD for 12 years in his personal collection. I can't answer that, Doc.
Yeah, that's a rhetorical question, right? You don't want to present anything to the defense that potentially can be used against your star witness. Nothing. That's why it was called Brendan's computer. That's why only Brendan Dassie was able to be named as a third party Denny, and everyone else was off the table, including Bobby Dassie. Right? So the argument would have been if they had analyzed the Valley CD, they would have said, shit, wait a minute, this computer was seized from Bobby's bedroom, not from Brendan's. And then there would have been deeper questions. Who used this computer? But wait a minute, these boys are at school, Bobby's home. So it would have started looking bad for Bobby. And Bobby's their star witness that talked about Teresa walking towards Stephen's house. So yeah, that's why they kept it. They hid it. They obfuscated it.
Well, yeah, and it took months for when Kathleen asked for this Bailey CD. It took months for them to get it to her. Months.
From Fallon, correct.
Yeah. Alrighty, next question is from Anthony. Susan, you want to read this one?
Didn't cops have a warrant to take the computer in 2017? If so, why don't they?
No.
The reports say this. They didn't need a warrant. They just asked her, and she said, "Take it."
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure they had her sign the voluntary blah
Yes.
blah blah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
but
I think.
yeah,
Yep. I think it
but
was
she
Spooky.
offered it.
Yes, she did.
Yeah.
Remember, we played the phone call. Sorry, not the phone call, when they were in the subway.
The interview.
The interview. He goes, yeah, take it.
If cops get permission from somebody to enter your house, you can give them permission, and they don't
Correct.
need
Yes.
a warrant
That's
Correct.
correct.
in that case. So yeah.
Same thing had happened at Cuss Road with that search that had already occurred, and they got a hold of the property owners, and they voluntarily just said, "Oh, okay, I'll sign it. It's fine."
Yep.
So,
Yep.
Okay. Next question is from Clive. Susan, you want to read that one too?
I think Judge Shakevich was threatened with having her license revoked, so she recused herself from this case.
We don't know. It's just weird.
We don't know.
No,
Yeah.
there's some weird shit going on with her just dropping the case like a hot potato.
Yep. But I've heard many arguments.
Yeah.
A lot of people are just sick and tired of Kathleen Zellner and don't want this to go forward at all. Stop it at all costs.
I'm sick and tired of Sakevich, so
Correct.
I'm glad
Correct.
she's gone.
I'm
Correct.
in your party. I'm in your party, Susan.
Yep, correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Alrighty. Next question, Susan.
Cops said in the 2017 interview, "Don't give the computer to Zellner." Yes? Yeah.
That's right.
I think
That's
they
right.
did.
They did.
Scott Tadich and Barb. Correct.
Mhm.
And
They did tell her. They did tell Barb that. Go ahead, Doc.
what spooked them was the finding of the folders of Teresa, DNA, and Stephen. the pictures.
Yeah.
And they asked Bobby, "Did you do these folders?" And that's what spooked them. So in other words, they're going, "Did we miss anything?" That's why they wanted the computer back. Did we miss anything? Yep.
And kept it for 5 freaking months.
Yeah.
5 months.
Whereas to clone a hard drive, you literally maybe 2 hours. That's what they do. Clone a hard drive.
In 2017, probably less time than that.
Oh yeah, gotcha.
Yeah. Alrighty. Neverly, I'm going to pop on the next question. Can you read it? Neverly might have stepped away.
No, I'm here. Just give me a second, please. Clive Coolidge. Yeah, but most of the searches were done during school time. Exactly.
Yes, that's true. But remember what we discussed. You've got to take into account school holidays. When Brenton were at home, that
Yep.
they didn't go to school, there were school holidays or special events. So even though there were school times, there's a narrow frame that Bobby could have used the computer by himself. If it's a holiday or someone was sick, and I know that Blaine was sick, he had hives, he had to go to the doctor, all bets are off. All bets are off. If there's another person in that household, all bets are off.
That's right.
Correct.
All
And
right.
so they should be like that too. Correct.
Yep. All right, Neverly, next question from Anthony.
Yeah, but regarding Bobby, again, doesn't it make more sense that Bobby had the most opportunity and privacy to do the searches because he worked the opposite hours of everybody
Yes.
else?
Well,
Yes.
and it was at least in his room at
Correct.
least part of the time. That's correct.
Exactly.
Correct.
Next question is from Anthony Hills. Who would use the computer while Bobby slept without permission?
Well, I tell you what, you wouldn't want to, if Bobby was sleeping and he had to sleep to get up and go, because he used to go hunting. You wouldn't want to accidentally wake him up. He'd be pretty pissed. Plus, the number one rule, mate, don't come in my bedroom. My bedroom is my domain, my privacy. You come in my bedroom, you're dead. That's how most boys are, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You better, and if I'm asleep, you better damn well wake me up or leave me alone.
And also remember, Bobby Dassie had the ability to lock his door.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. So.
Plus, he had two younger brothers who, of course, he was the king when it comes to that.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to take on Bobby Dassie, right? I think if Bobby wanted to use the computer, you say, okay. Yeah. You wouldn't challenge Bobby.
No. You tell him get the hell out. Lock the door.
Yep.
All righty.
Get smacked on the head.
Probably.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Next question. Neverly, from Anthony.
Can it be proved that Bobby lied at testimony by the location of the computer?
Well, I'm sure they'll blame it on, he forgot or the computer really was in the lounge, but at some stage it got transferred to his bedroom and maybe he just forgot. Yep. They'll come up with some reason. But quite clearly, the investigators proved that it was in his bedroom, at least on November the 6th. And you had Blaine, who signed an affidavit to say, yep, it was in my brother's bedroom.
All righty. Neverly, next question is from Colette.
Colette M. Do we know how long each of these searches were?
Well, there's a lot of data that say when the computer was accessed. And then when you access, you go on a computer, you do your computer searches, then you'll list all the activity on that computer. And I think there's a time as well. So in terms of how long those searches were for, I don't know. It's likely that whoever was using the computer could have used the computer for a minute or could have been sitting on there for hours.
Yeah, you'd have to actually track down when the computer was on, when the searches started, and then when the computer was turned off.
Correct.
And you could get probably some semblance of an idea, I guess.
Correct. Yeah. But the proceeds of those searches are on the computer, right? So they're there. That's a fact.
Yeah. All righty. Neverly, one more for you, and then we'll share the wealth.
Anthony Hills. Can any prior ruling by Judge Sakadis in regards to
Brady.
Brady be reversed at, I guess, a higher court
I'm not an attorney. I'm
or
not a
retrial?
Do-
I don't know, but
retrial.
that's the whole freaking point. The higher courts should rule, and no judge likes to have their convictions or ruling reversed. But this is the process.
I
But
think
if
that
you get a retrial, you start clean.
over.
You start
Uh-huh.
from
Over.
scratch. You start over.
Yeah,
So none of those prior rulings come into play.
Yeah, they
Correct.
don't want Kathleen Zona's foot in the door. Full stop.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
for a Brady violation to be overturned, that would have to be at the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court level. It wouldn't be at a retrial. That happens in a different court setting.
Correct.
That's what I think.
That
I'm not a
Yeah,
lawyer,
but
so
on
Those
an
would
appeal,
come into after the retrial if they then committed Brady's or
correct.
that sort of thing. Then
Starting
that would
fresh.
come up afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're starting a whole new trial. Like the
Yes.
first one never even happened.
Correct.
And all the appeals and everything is wiped out.
but on an appeal, they do look at the judge's misconduct or misrulings or bad rulings
Yeah.
or whatever.
That's what appeals are for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, Cherie, can you read a question or two?
Sure.
Okay, here's the next one.
Cassandra Smith, why does Bobby have to be alone while looking at the stuff on the computer? I wouldn't be surprised if all the boys didn't show their brothers what they found or saw. Friends definitely do.
Excellent.
That's an excellent question. Well, the thing is that Kathleen Zona is trying to prove that it was Bobby Dassie that had the fascination with the torture porn and things like that. So hence providing him a motive. So if you have his brothers potentially there or friends, then the argument is, well, they egged each other on and they were whispering in Bobby Dassie's, oh, download this and have a look at that. So in other words, the searching is shared,
Yeah.
right, guys? You don't want that. You don't want that. It has to be specific.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure that
Also-
may have happened. I'm sure that may have happened.
Also, speaking of Barb saying that Tom Yanda was on the computer and she doesn't know if he looked at porn, usually husbands do not watch porn freely in front of their wives, if you know what I mean.
No, it's either they're away or they're joining them, one of the two.
Yep.
Yeah, and I said it before, we know Travis was around and some of the other friends of Brendan and Blaine, maybe even Bobby, I guess, but Mike Osmondson, I'm sure he was over there. Whether he, looked at any kind of porn or was shown, we don't know for sure, but it's definitely possible. It didn't have to be alone. It's a great
Yep.
question.
Correct. Excellent question.
Yep. Okay, Cherie, next question.
Okay. Trev. So if Len failed to protect his client and allow Ellie to interview Brendan, how is it not anything he said from the poisonous tree and inadmissible?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, that's a huge argument we've gotten into in the past, or debate.
Correct. Because then there was the phone call that he convinced Brendan to phone up his mum, and he made that sort of like partial admission. Yeah, I did some of it.
Some of it. How
And
much
people-
how much time am I gonna get for help cleaning the garage?
Yep, that's correct. So you got to be very careful when you listen to one thing in context and blow it completely out of context. Because there were other phone calls that said, well, I did help my uncle clean his garage. How many years in prison am I going to get? So you got to be very careful. But you're correct. None of that stuff should have ever made it in trial. But it was. It's fruit from the poison tree. You're correct.
Yeah, people have to listen to that interview on May 13th and what Wiegert said to Brendan. You got to think about these two veteran detectives that had already made him write an apology to the Hallbox
Correct.
in that interview. Made him do it over something he never did. and he, they're continuing this. He's afraid of them. There's no doubt. He is afraid of these guys, and you got to listen to all of it. And what Uyghur said to him at the end, if you don't call your mom, I'm going to. You want me to call your mom telling you you're lying? Because he said, well, he originally said, well, I'll probably call her tomorrow. Well, you need me to call your mom? So that's, that was another prodding for him to call Barb that night.
Yep.
Bullshit. And it should have never been allowed. That was all while Brendan was Kaczynski's client, and he completely hosed him. Completely.
Yes, he did.
So, all right. Okay, next question. Cherie, here you go.
Okay. Anthony Hills, will state of Tennessee allow forensic testing for West Memphis 3?
Well, I think it's an Arkansas case. Wasn't it? Yeah, that was an Arkansas case.
Yeah.
From what I've read, this was a while back. They don't want to do any more forensic testing. They want to stop it.
Yeah.
The boys signed an Alfred plea that they don't want to do any more testing.
Hell no, they don't. The state doesn't. That's what I read too, Doc.
No, but Damien is pushing for it because he wants to clear his name.
Oh,
Don't
gotcha.
blame him.
Yep.
Don't blame him.
He was on death row. He was on death row.
Yep. Well, that's why they signed the Alfred agreement, to keep Damon from dying.
Yep.
Alrighty. Very last question from Anthony. Cherie?
Can red deer blood cells be combined with white human blood cells to plant human DNA?
Well, the deer blood has got hemoglobin in it, so it's going to react positive with phenolphthalein, because phenolphthalein is not specific for human blood. But the issue is, why would you bother? To get white blood cells, you need a source of blood, human blood, for a start. So there'll be no advantage at all to mix deer blood with human blood, right? The whole idea of planting in the RAV is that you just need a very, very tiny amount of the blood. Dilute it in water, in a diluent. It doesn't have to be pretty. Who cares? Spread it, dab it. As long as it's visual, you can see it, you can swab it, you can test it for phenolphthalein, positive for hemoglobin, do another swab, extract DNA from it, done. You've done everything you need to. Yeah. So there's no need for the deer blood as well. But the other thing is that Bobby is used to being around blood, right? He dismembers an animal. An animal that's dismembered is going to bleed, right? So in fact, the irony is, remember the picture he showed of his deer tag?
Yes.
Right? When he got the deer tag, it's all smeared in blood, right?
And I honestly don't understand why a photo of that tag was taken. I don't get it. I'm sure maybe there was some legitimate reason. But I really don't understand that, Doc.
Whole deer story is a very interesting one.
Yeah.
Yep. Very interesting.
And actually, one more question. This was after we're done. We typically don't do this, but this is a pretty easy one, I think
she did. I think they
did.
did.
Not raised ineffective assistance of counsel. Well, as I remember, their original motion, her and Drissen's, to Judge Duffin raised this point not just exclusively, but it was a huge part of what was turned into him.
Yep. And the argument was, well, Kaczynski, he wasn't part of the main trial. He was gone. And so they ignored it. But it was all the damage that was done prior to going to trial that said, he was gone.
He destroyed the case. Kaczynski and O'Kelly destroyed Rendon's case, and there's just no way around that.
Yep.
And one more here before we wrap up. From Stuart King, Dr. Silkman, what happens to blood when you boil it? As this case makes mine boil. Good comment. Good question.
Well, if you heat the red blood cells, you're going to basically destroy the biological component of the blood. So proteins, the DNA, it's all going to get denatured. You're going to disrupt the membranes of the red blood cells. The whole thing is just going to be an absolute mess. So temperature, high temperatures, especially to proteins, nucleic acids, RNA, DNA, you're going to denature. So enzymes, proteins.
It was a joke, Doug.
Oh,
you ask a scientist a question about,
Yeah.
he's going to give you a scientific answer, right? That's
Correct.
exactly right.
Yep, correct. Yeah.
All right, that's end of the questions.
Fantastic. Well, look, guys, I hope that everyone enjoyed the presentation. We've probably got about 1 or 2 more podcasts to go for this chapter, and I think it's been an incredible chapter, very revealing. We've certainly gone into a lot of detail, and I want to thank all my panel members for their wisdom, and everybody in chat for their fantastic questions. And again, guys, as we started off this podcast several hours ago, thinking about the memory of Jason Millbilly. Again, it's a big loss to the community, and everyone here on the panel, and I'm sure in chat, wants to express their condolences to the family and friends. I promise that we'll continue the good, hard fight that Millbilly and many of the others that we've lost have continued for many, many years, their tireless work. So, guys, before we close off the panel, I'm going to quickly go I'm going to quickly go through the panel. Tell us how you're coming along, Jack 61.
Yeah, doing very well. It was we took a little break, and that was good. Like I said, I've been looking at other cases and what happens in court and just the crazy stuff. Another thing that I'll talk about this a little bit more in probably in the open mic tomorrow, but talking about police, we get so many comments. You guys just hate the police. You just hate them. That's just an outright bold-faced lie, and I'll say it to anybody's face. No, we don't. I dislike dishonest police or somebody that's willing to compromise evidence to get someone convicted. Yeah, I don't like them because they've affected a process that's unique, that cannot be screwed with. It's like somebody having surgery, It's like many other examples that we put. Anyway, just going through, I watch a lot of DUI type arrests and so forth. And the patience of some of these guys, these police men and women, is far beyond mine. I can tell you that. I would have been probably fired and maybe prosecuted with the actions of some of these drunk people that they pull over, trying to keep them from killing themselves and other people. It's insane. And I'll share a couple of YouTube channels that I've watched these videos on. It's crazy, the patience these people have, these police officers, and they do it every day.
Yes.
So anyway, it's quite amazing. Anyway, other than that, just been working on a couple of open records requests, especially ones that I've received prior. Thinking more about the new one. I did post recently. I did convert the one phone call that I did get from Queso.
Yes.
There are no phone. Consider this: of all the phone calls Avery made, jail calls, when he was incarcerated before trial, for the month of February, we don't have anything. Not a single call. Not one call. For the month of March, I think we have 4 now, or maybe 3. I think we have 3 or 4. It's not many at all. And so the month of January, I think he had 50. There were a lot, but then it suddenly dies. We have nothing. So that piqued my interest, right? So I asked for these phone calls, and after almost a year, I got one call from Queso. One. Yeah. So I'm questioning. Well, I'm questioning that because I don't believe it. I'm sorry. I just don't. I don't believe that him being at trial preventing him from calling, Dolores and talking to her. So, and maybe even Debbie. I don't know. I just don't know. I'm getting ready to start converting the last batch of Jody calls that we got a while back. and
Nice.
we'll be getting those posted, and that will be done. Other than that, just preparing for tomorrow, 5 o'clock. We're going back into the Queso dispatch calls, November 3rd, Channel 7. We did Channel 6 the last time. Going to Channel 7. I promise it'll be interesting. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks for everyone that's joined us. We had peak almost, I think we had over 90 people at one time, so we really
Fantastic.
appreciate it. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much, Jack61. Next we have Just Rhonda.
Oh, thank you, Doc. Thanks to everybody on the panel, you and Neverly, for putting together another great presentation. And there were a lot of great questions tonight in the chat.
Yep.
Definitely. I feel like every question that I have not asked myself absolutely, sparks a new one, a new topic of conversation. So
yes,
another thing to learn. So
yes,
I really appreciate all of the comments and questions in the chat. We're in reading transcripts now over on my channel on Sherry Ellis's case in Daniel's case, or her accusation rather in Daniel's case. And Thursday will be a real big treat because you get to hear the testimony transcript of Kim Davis.
Oh no!
As to Sherry Ellis's accusation. So it's always a treat to hear from Rocky or Kim because they're so insightful and have such great stories to tell. So we're going to do that on Thursday at 5 p.m. Central. And yeah, so that's it. And again, before again, thank you to Jack for streaming my podcast also over here on Foul Play. Appreciate it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Just Rhonda. Much appreciated. Next, we have Susan. Susan.
Yeah, Doc. Good presentation. I particularly enjoyed, well, I don't know if that's the right word, but going back over some of Sakevich's rulings.
Yes.
To reiterate how ridiculous they were and have been, and just hope that this appeal gets some legs because it definitely deserves them. It's hard to imagine that she won't be granted an evidentiary hearing with everything that Kathleen presented. The state's reply is due by March 20th. So that should be interesting. See what they have to say about her brief.
Yes.
So I look forward to that. And thank you. And good night, everyone.
Thank you very much, Susan.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated. Next, we have I Don't Recall.
Thank you. I echo what Susan was saying. Very thought-provoking presentation tonight, and I thank you for that, and that really too. Amy is planning. She had to miss last week because she has slammed at work, but she's supposed to be back Monday night, 7 o'clock. 6 o'clock Central Time, with some more on Ashley's case. Hope you can join us. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I Don't Recall. And last but not least is my partner in crime, Neverly. Neverly, how are you coming along?
Hi, Dr. Silkman. I'm doing great, actually. Thank you so much for being the driving force behind these podcasts. This is a lot of work, and you have a unique way of presenting and also conveying all the information that we come up with. So thank you very much for that. There was also a question maybe 30 minutes ago from TJ Anderson. He asked, and I'm paraphrasing, if Bobby could have been given an immunity for any further prosecution, any kind of consequences from what was found on the Willie CD on his computer. And
not without us knowing about it.
No,
we don't know about it, but it's amazing what kind of sweetheart deals you can get from the prosecution. if you have the information, if you're willing to flip, what, it's motivated by that, because the history of deals that you can score with them is just, so there's a wide array, from full immunity to derivative immunity to limited immunity to all kinds of stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if he was given, of course, speculation only, because the more information that you have against the defendant, the better for you it is. And
Yes.
I put that in the chat. I've been following the Dan Markel case, where there's a whole family of prominent family were co-conspirators in hiring a hitman to murder this 41-year-old, a brilliant professor. So one of the, I think there's 5 or 6 of them, they approached one co-conspirator and they gave her a full immunity to walk away free forever because she could not be, tried again. And she refused it. So they offered it to her again, twice, and she refused it. She thought she could bullshit her way around and out of it. And guess what? They put her on trial, and now she's sitting in prison, life without parole.
Yeah, but there's a lot at stake here in this case, and you could tell by when Bobby Dassie gave his answers about the pornography, he distanced himself from the pornography. I was only a minor, little bit, and he distanced himself from the computer. Under no circumstances does he want to be associated with any of the vulgar porn that was on that computer. None. Because that's ammunition for Kathleen Zellner for a third-party Denny, right? So even if I understand about doing a sweetheart deal, the state are not going to go there. The state want a status quo. No, you try and prove that my client looked at this stuff. Yeah, good luck, right? So in this particular case, they want to distance and isolate Bobby away from any of that material completely.
Oh, of course, because if this ever is brought up again, they're up creek, because it opens the door to Stephen to get out eventually.
Yes.
Potentially. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, there definitely could have been an undisclosed deal, right?
Well, the way they were talking to Bobby, the investigators were talking to Bobby. Remember when they recorded it? How they went into this grand spew. Oh, we wouldn't.
Oh my God, yes.
You think, wait a minute, what? There's not even a trial yet, and you're talking about we wouldn't dare plant stuff. Come on, what are you talking about? That's extremely bizarre. And what did Dolores say? That Bobby was treated very rough. It was a very rough time for him. I think Barb said the same thing too. So Lord knows what accusations they flew at him. And they even said, are we going to find your prints on the RAV? Oh, no, I was nowhere near the RAV. And then Tom Swinsky comes up, right? So, yeah, it's not looking good.
And how are you doing, Dr. Silkman?
I'm doing very well. I'm really enjoying getting back into the case. Learning new stuff all the time. And this material has been a real revelation. Tragic news, of course, about Millbilly. But, we have to continue. We have to go on, keep up the good fight. And, but health-wise, I'm doing very well. So fingers crossed, we'll be back at it. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. If you've enjoyed our podcast, please subscribe, like our podcast, and please share them. And guys, we'll all see you tomorrow. Thank you.
And with that said, I'm going to say, once again, this has been a Foul Play production.